Found in my raggedy jeans for you?
I didn't want to see the presentation.
Yeah, nice. You're not in Hawaii, on your back screen or anything like that. So do you have a Janine and Charlie?
Yes, I know.
You shaved off about 20 years, huh?
I had carotid surgery,
Oh, really?
Oh,
and so I had to
Oh,
take
so
the
you
beard
feel-
off, and I've got another one scheduled in a couple of weeks.
You feeling okay?
Commissioner Acosta, yes, we can hear you.
Once I get you in,
Oh, okay, thank you.
kiss it goodbye.
it's like my doctor keeps.
I haven't been able to ride my bike. I've had cataract surgery.
Oh, my wife's gonna have cataract surgery. My wife's gonna have that in December.
Okay, I had one the end of August. I had the other eye done, that's why I was late to the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay. I no longer need, I use my reading glasses on certain fonts. I don't use my progressives at all anymore. I don't use my 3.5 reading glasses
Oh,
anymore.
wow.
I got 1.2 fonts, which is the lowest I can get. I use it, if I read like more than 20 pages, my eyes start to feel swollen, so I put on the reading glasses.
Ah,
Certain fonts.
no problem.
They need to change that clock. Good morning. If you would, the commission asked that if you would like to speak for or against any of the cases this morning, if you would go over here and sign up to speak with Elaine, we'd appreciate that. Okay, it helps to expedite the meeting if we know who's going to speak. Applicants don't have to do it. We know you're going to come up. But if you're for or against any of the cases, go ahead and sign up. Thank you. Here we go. So, I had cataract surgery on this side. I went to the optometrist, he said, look, it might be 6 months, it might be 10 years, I don't know. So, 8 months later, I bought new glasses, and I noticed that everything was fuzzy, so I went back to him, he says, remember I said 6 months or 10 years? It's 8 months. You need cataract surgery. So he said, on your other eye, he said, there's nothing wrong. He said, you may never have to have surgery on your other eye. And that was 10 years ago. I've never, and so I read with this eye and see distance with this eye.
Mine is, I can't complain.
Isn't it amazing?
It's great. Except, I hate the $400 glasses that are sitting in the drawer. That I can't use, that I don't use, but hey, But if I can use, use 1.25 readers if I'm reading over 50 pages.
Elaine, you ready? Why don't you do the roll call?
Commissioner Zarges,
Here?
Commissioner Herrera,
Here.
Commissioner Montañez,
Here.
Commissioner Lear,
Here.
Commissioner Castañeda, Commissioner Acosta,
Here.
Chair Zerniak.
Here. Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, I'll hear a motion to approve.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of October 27th, 2022.
I move that we approve the minutes from the regular meeting of October 27th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right. There's no old business, so we'll move to new business. Case number Z 22011. Albert, you have the floor.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Albert Casillas, 845 North Mattel Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Our first case today is going to be a zone change request in the village of Hatch. The address is 100 Castañeda Road. The property owners, Mr. and Mrs. Moreno, and the applicants, Anton Magallanes with the Moy Surveying. Existing zoning, it's a T2 rural zone. Property size, it's almost 12 acres. It stands at 11.90 acres. T2, and they're requesting to go down to T3. And this is in order to subdivide the property into lots less than 2 acres. When we look at the location map, this is where the 11 acres are located. You have the town of Placitas right here to the south of it. The town of Hatch, it's here to the east. You have a Highway 187 on the south. This is North Castañeda Road. So it's basically bounded by 187, North Castañeda Road, Canal Street, and this is Placitas Arroyo. And when we look at the aerial, we kind of see, where the property is located. Subject parcel, 11.90 acres. You got the Placitas Arroyo right here to the east, Highway 187, Castañeda Road, and Canal Street right here. Couple of parcels here to the north. We have 2 half-acre lots right next to it. This one's a 1 acre lot, and a couple of 1 acre lots to the south across 187 as well. When we look at the zoning map, so everything in gray, that's within the limits of Hatch. You have the Placitas area down here that kind of has like a mixed use of T3s, T4s right here, and the T2s as well. All these right here are also T3, those parcels that we saw that were right next to it. So it is almost 12 acres. Back when it was still under Chapter 250, the property was zoned performance district. So back then, when it came to splitting lots, you were allowed to go down to 3/4 of an acre per NEMD standards. If you didn't have sewer and you were going to put a septic tank on it, 3/4 of an acre was the minimum lot size. And then, of course, when we adopted the UDC, it went to a T2. So the thing about T2 is, there's 2 different ways of subdividing property. if somebody files for a claim of exemption, which is, it allows you to do a one-time split, or if you're doing it for family members, the code does allow you to go down to 3/4 of an acre, if you're doing it under a claim of exemption, which is, you draft up your deeds, you do your surveys, and, you submit the application, and it just gets reviewed. But if you're doing a summary subdivision, which is to, create some lots to sell to whomever you want, then that creates the 2-acre minimum. There's no mechanism to reduce that lot size other than filing for a zone change. So if somebody wanted to come in here and do a summary subdivision, which is for 5 lots or less, the smallest they could do would be 2-acre lots. Here's an existing survey of the property, so it's just showing the meets and bounds for the 11.9 acres. And that's just a close-up of the property. There's a mobile home right here right now. It's not showing because it was just recently added on the property. And that's the existing mobile home that's there, but this is off of Castañeda Road. When we look, throughout the 11 acres, they're not farming the property anymore. This levee back here, that's the levee for the Placitas Arroyo. Castañeda Road is county maintained. It is a county right of way. So here, when we're standing on the levee, looking down on it, we see the existing arroyo. That's the bridge off of 187 right here. And looking back from that levee to the existing mobile home on Castañeda Road, we look across the road and we see that it's basically surrounded by farming. It is a farming community out there. You are going to see mobile homes, single wides, double wides out there, site-built homes, pretty low density. And this just another picture of the area. So when we talk about the requirements for zone changes, it's spelled out in the UDC under section 203. When it came to notification requirements, all of those were met. 16 letters were sent out. Really no letters, no correspondence in favor or against this request. When you look at your case analysis, there were some comments from Flood in regards to the Placitas Arroyo Master Plan. So this was a study that was done, a couple years ago. It's a 1,000-page study of, what were the plans in order to mitigate some of the potential flooding issues out there. When you look at the comments from Flood, they're basically saying, we can't really allow any development on here. That's what the comments state. After talking with Michael Garza, he basically said, well, anything that comes in here, we're saying no, we're not saying no to development, but we're saying that anything that comes in here, we're gonna have to really look close at it. Whether it's a mobile home permit, whether it's a building permit, whether it's a claim of exemption or a summary subdivision, there's gonna be extensive comments, depending on the layout that's being proposed. Under that master plan, there's a couple of alternatives. 2 of them have to do with expanding the arroyo or expanding the levees, making them wider. There's alternative 1 talks about extending it 220 feet from what it currently is right now. There's alternative 2, which is a little bit shorter, but a little bit deeper as well. So basically, what Michael Garza from Flood was saying is that 200 feet from the arroyo, we're probably not going to sign off on anything because of those future plans that we have. Anything else, we're still going to have to review it. We're still going to have to give you guys comments, and it might or it might not be possible. But they're not saying that, no, you can't develop on it. There's already a mobile home on there. That mobile home that got added on there had to go through, elevation certificates and all that in order to get approved. So there is potential for development on site still. This is the map for those properties that were notified. When we look at the decisional criteria, number of homes, so basically they're just wanting to go down to 3/4 of an acre. Currently, if the applicant was not to do anything on site, he can have one main home on the property and two accessory dwellings not exceeding 1,250 square feet. That's what's allowed by right now because of the T2 designation. We don't anticipate any large impact to the population, no impact to demographics, and then no major impact to traffic flows. The zone change will allow the property to be subdivided into smaller lots that are kind of consistent with the surrounding area. We already saw that there's existing, half-acre lots, 1-acre lots around the property. Water is already provided by Garfield Water. Septic tanks are going to handle wastewater. There is sufficient infrastructure for the proposed use, and there's no evidence of any environmentally sensitive areas out there. There are similar existing lots. No major impacts are, being anticipated, and whether, the applicant has to go through a claim of exemption or a summary subdivision, then he's going to be using, those best practices that are required by those application requirements. So we do believe that the applicant meets this section of the code. When it comes to the comprehensive plan, really, we don't see anything that goes against the goals or actions of the comprehensive plan. Goal 4.1 talks about, providing more marketable and affordable housing and zoning, to allow more housing units out throughout the county. So we don't think that they're in conflict with the comp plan. When it comes to, the need to cover and perfect the previous effective ordinance or to correct any mistakes or injustices, I just talked about the T2 and how you can only do 2 acres if you're doing the summary subdivision. However, if you're doing a claim of exemption, you are allowed to go down to 3/4 of an acre. So if they do go down to T3, the minimum they're going to have to do, they're able to do it's 3/4 of an acre. Current uses allowed under the T2 and T3, they're pretty much similar. You're allowed to have one main home. The T3 only allows you to do one accessory dwelling instead of like the T2 allows you one accessory dwelling every 5 acres. That would be about the only difference, but it's still pretty much low density residential. There's not much difference there. So our staff findings, they're included in your packet. We don't, we believe it satisfies the decisional criteria under 203D. We don't believe it's considered a spot zone, and it's not in conflict with the comprehensive plan. Our recommendation for this case is a recommendation of approval for Z22-011 to go from T2 to T3 on this 11.90 acre parcel. I do have the applicant here. If you guys have any questions for him, John Gwynn, the Director of Flood, he's also available for questions or comments.
Questions? Let me have the flood commissioner come up, okay?
Good morning.
Good
Please state your
morning.
name and address for the record.
John Gwynn, Doña Ana County Flood Commission.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I know that there are specific questions about the drainage issues and flooding that's happened here. One of the key things to keep in mind is, let me go back up to some of the aerial photos. So if you look at this bridge was actually removed by the village of Hatch a couple of years ago because of the flooding. One of the things that our study showed is that this original arroyo that came through here way back many, many years ago was over 400 feet wide. It's now 47 feet wide. Kind of a significant problem. And so That's why the study was done after the 2006 floods. Right here at this corner is where the arroyo ruptured, and it went into the village this direction. Since then, the village has done a lot of work. They purchased the arroyo from people and entities so that they could maintain it better. They've hard armored a lot of these areas, compacting the soil, making it better. But the interesting thing is that the Placitas Arroyo is an elevated arroyo, so it is above existing grade. So if you look at the area here or here on any side of it, the bottom of the arroyo is actually above the properties on either side of the arroyo. So if those banks fail, the water's going, it's just period. There's no place else for it to go. So the master drainage plan calls for widening the arroyo to about 150 feet at minimum, depending on which option is chosen. Widening these bridges to meet that, and doing some more hard armoring to make sure that they meet standards so that they won't breach when the water comes through. So there's an awful lot of things. Even the Highway 26 bridge, DOT's bridge above this is way undersized. So it will have to be rebuilt as well. So there's a lot of efforts that are happening right now. The village is actually getting funds to rebuild this Canal Street Bridge right now. So they'll try to get money out of the next legislative session. So the topography throughout here is going to change in the very near future based on the past study and the flooding that's happened in the past. I don't know what other questions you have. I stand for any questions, either technical or whatever that you might have.
So this doesn't necessarily relate to the rezone, but if they wanted to develop on this property, would they have to raise the grade of the property?
Absolutely. Well, at least the home. So it's in a FEMA flood hazard zone, so they would have to elevate. Mobile homes are typically elevated already, but they would have to make sure that all of their air conditioners and all the utilities are raised above the floodplain level. So there would be some efforts. The mobile home that's on there now has already met all those standards. So it's very possible to develop those types of homes in this area. But it's going to be difficult to say exactly where the line is for how much of the arroyo needs to be widened in that area, because when I say widen, I'm talking about the interior of the arroyo. Then you have to have a maintenance road on the side of it, then you have to have a bank sloping down to the property on the side. So the actual bank of that channel could move up to 200 feet further. So that being in mind, obviously the Flood Commission has a lot of questions about development in the area.
Okay. Any questions for John?
Mr. Chair, you talked about widening the levee and also widening some of the bridges. Have you got any idea what a timeline is on that work being done?
Not yet. So I know that the village is working on the downstream bridge, on the Canal Street Bridge right now. It then comes down to just funding and getting the projects moving through the funding cycle. Money is the issue. Bridges are expensive. The DOT bridge is several years out before they even consider it. It's pretty much at the end of its service life, but they just have to get it programmed. So it's a process that's going to take years to do.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question. Besides widening the bridge, is there any plans to make it deeper?
We can't make it deeper.
You can't?
No. We have a couple of elevation constraints. One of them is the river itself. The other one is that at several of those key bridge crossings, there is EBID infrastructure in place that actually goes under the arroyo. So we're pretty much tied to the elevation that we're at.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, John.
You're very welcome.
We appreciate it. Is Mr. Magallanes here?
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Anton Magallanes, 1985, Calle de Colon, Mesilla, New Mexico.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. How are you all? Good to see you all again. Yes, so the arroyo is, of course, something to take note at. We actually did perform the elevation certificate on that mobile home as well, as we've done numerous throughout the county and the city, or the county, the greater county. And the requirements, we actually work, Mike Garza is probably annoyed with having heard from me as much as we do, because we reach out to them to determine what the flood elevation would be. We then let the customers know, hey, you have to put your house at or above that level. So it's a really nice collaboration to make sure that they are in compliance for our auditing and FEMA rating and community profile policies, or rates that get determined based off of that. So I think it is important to remember that although this is definitely an inundated area relative to a flood zone, it doesn't stop development. This really reminds me of a similar project just north in the village of Doñana, where we were submitting a summary subdivision for just a lot that was going to get replatted. And the Flood Commission actually said, although this property is not in a flood zone, it is something that we want to build a pond out of. And so they actually went through eminent domain to then acquire that parcel of land from the owner. And so that was a very interesting process, in that that owner at the time didn't necessarily want to do that, but again, it worked the way that it did. When I think about this process for development and this, I think it lends itself to being a little bit more aligned with working with the Flood Commission, in that we can say, okay, what is it that we're really looking at? How much space do you guys think you need? Because I think we can, if done correctly, and of course, not speaking for the owners, but recommending that if they are in fact trying to get some lots out of this, we might be able to solve both problems by saying, let's develop responsibly, by being considerate to what the commission or the Flood Commission is requiring, so that we can have the best of both worlds. I know that I'm not sure when that process of eminent domain would take place for this parcel of land that the commission may want at some point in time. I suspect that it wouldn't happen more sooner rather than later, just because of the fundings and such. But I think the concurrent and collaborative process and planning through that split would be more beneficial than it would be, given we know who the owners are, they know of what problems arise or could arise with this. And again, that's not to say that they still couldn't develop this, but really work with the Flood Commission to develop responsibly, so that there's a tract of land that can be kind of earmarked, maybe still owned by the owner, but earmarked for the development of that arroyo at some point in time. As far as the actual zone goes, we are seeing that there's some T3 zoning around that area, so I think it is consistent with the surrounding area. Although it is farmland, it's not being utilized as farm. I'm actually not sure if there's still active water rights on there, or if they got sold off at some point in time, but it's not being used as an agricultural use. Although the code does allow us to do a claim of exemption to get a smaller than a 1 acre or 2 acre minimum lot size, if I know what our intent is, I'd rather not try and just side skirt these like loopholes to jump through to try and get them what they want, and just rather clean it up and do it the right way, which is why I think the best approach would be to rezone to a T3 to get the smaller lot size. Our 3/4 acre minimum is what we say as a standard, but for a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, I believe it actually has to be 0.88 according to NMED. So as we see these mobile homes or manufactured houses get a little bit larger, homes get a little bit larger, we can almost expect that they'd be a little bit larger than 3/4 acre at that as well. But 3/4 is a standard for a conventional system, at least at this point, for a 3-bedroom home. As far as, like I said, consistency, we did see that prior to the UDC, it was allowed to get zoned to that requirement. I haven't actually spoken with the owners as to what their intent is with development. I know Albert had mentioned that they're thinking about having a few 1 acre lots to sell, which is what is producing this zone change. The way that if we were hired to then produce that summary subdivision, I would more than likely just have all of them front that road, so that they don't have to, 1, create roads, but 2, it also then helps the Flood Commission have some land to work with. I think if I go back to my survey, you guys might be able to see, but that bottom line right there is 220 feet. Obviously, it's not perpendicular to the arroyo. So if there was something that the flood commission was, recommending with 200 feet, I still think there could be a layout that works with the owner's requests while still hoping to create a buffer of land that one day the flood commission may be able to acquire via eminent domain or some type of process. I hate to take any questions if anyone has any, of course.
Questions?
Thank you.
Elaine, do you have anyone on the list for this case?
Yes, the first one is Naomi Moyers.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry,
Good morning.
how is everybody today?
Good morning. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Naomi Moyers, 401 Castaneda Road.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Casillas, I did try and reach out to you and you never responded. And also, I never received an actual letter, which I've lived. If I could access, I'm sorry, I don't have all this fancy stuff, but if I could use his maps, that would be great. Okay. Sure, that was fine. Thank you. So I never received the letter, and there was also stuff posted, and then mysteriously, talking about the hearing, they just disappeared. So I do have a letter that some of the concerned community members have, we put this all together, and I do have lots of signatures. But those, like I said, those signs just disappeared all of a sudden. So they were only up for like maybe a week. And so I live right over here, I believe, and we've lived there for 30-some years. My husband, they own all this property over here. So they've been farming for 6 generations in Hatch. And some of our concerns, also some family members, Mrs. Carson also owns this over here, and she has, water rights to that. So she had hoped that she would purchase this, but was outbid, so we could keep it as, Hatch Chili. We're known for Hatch Chili. Land is very sacred there, so we're only limited space there. And so some of our concerns, I don't know if you'd like me to read this letter first, or, sorry, I'm kind of nervous.
That's fine, take your time.
Okay, so we concerned citizens of the Hatch, wait, I need my glasses. We are writing this letter in concern regarding the trailer park being planned on Castaneda Road in Hatch, New Mexico. This piece of land is agriculture land. Hatch is known for our chili and other crops. A trailer park would reduce the value of our lands and homes around it. We have small family farms around this piece of land, and trailer park in the area could cause damage to our crops and farms. A major concern in Hatch is, of course, the flood, as they were talking about, and I don't know a lot of logistics about this. Unfortunately, we know that firsthand the damage a flood can cause. This piece of land is very near the river and next to a major canal. It is also adjacent to the arroyo that breached in 2006 and caused major damage to homes and businesses. We were very lucky that nobody lost their lives. The trailer park would be in between Canal and Castaneda Road. Canal Road has been closed because the bridge there is not flood safe. The bridge sits low and water goes over, causing damage and concern of vehicles being swept away. There is no timeline for demolishing and reconstructing of the bridge. The only way the trailer park would go through Castaneda Road, and there's already high traffic on that road because it's used as a go-around for tractors, semi-trucks, buses. They use this road to avoid going through Hatch. Castaneda Road is also a very narrow road. At times, cars have to stop and pull over to allow large vehicles to get through. The intersection of Castaneda and Highway 187 are very high traffic. It is the only road to Salem and Garfield because Canal Road is closed. School buses, tractors, and semi-trucks cause a lot of congestion. There have been many accidents on this intersection. There is blocked visibility of cars traveling north on Highway 187. The speed limit is also a factor of accidents of cars traveling south of Hatch. So since I've lived there, there's been 11 wrecks there by my home. And so like more people, I work at a school, by the way, I'm a school teacher, so I love kids. But right here, if there's more people, this road here, and I think he had it, it's not very well kept. And it's very narrow. So 2 vehicles can't pass, one has to pull over. Thank you. See how it's cracked, and it's very narrow. 2 vehicles cannot fit there. I've had to pull over on this side, and then there's a ditch over here going across to Mrs. Carson's land as well. So I would just, and then I just found out that they were talking about the T2 and T3. I didn't look into that. Like I said, one of the neighbors is the one that informed me about this. So I really didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. But we're just concerned, you know, Hatch is, the demographics on it are very, you know, it's low income. So how flood insurance is very expensive. So how are these people, like he said, that everybody knows, but if they don't know who they're selling the land to, they don't know what they're getting into. So I would just hope that you reconsider zoning that and leave it as rural. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Irene Carson. Okay, so you want me to take you off the list? Okay. Diamond Garnett. Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Diamond Garnett, 1001 Highway 187 in Hatch.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I live on 1001 Highway 187. It is owned by Rena Carson, but we live there. They are a farming family for many generations, and I did not receive the letter about this going on. We're a small town of Hatch, so the word just kind of got around. I wish more people showed up, but like Ms. Moyer said before, it was a last-minute thing that we heard. So I don't have anything fancy with me other than this guy, but I previously heard him say that there is no farming land on this side where you see that trailer house, which is Miss Apodaca's, but my husband does farm hay to that side. So my concern and his concern are gonna be, how does the construction of all that arroyo stuff fall into play with his hay farm that is right there? It doesn't look like a hay farm now, but there is hay there. So I'm guessing that also goes with water rights because he does have a pump there as well. So that is our concern about that. And like Ms. Moyer stated, this is a small road. He does do his farm work, and we do work the pecan trees. So with a tractor, people do have to pull off over to the side. And yeah, I don't see how it could be like a two-way street unless they expand it, which I guess it could work, but it is just basically a one-way street. Also, me having kids and it being such a, like she said, rural place, our concern is the traffic, and not only that, but the people that will be there is a great concern for like our safety. We don't know who's moving there. We personally know the guy in the family, and it does raise a concern of who's gonna be moving there or what's gonna be there as well. But yeah, my biggest question, I guess, if I could ask a question, is if they do redo the arroyo and all that construction next to our hayfield, do we have to give up some of that hayfield? Does it go into it? I guess if that's a question we can ask or not.
You'd have to talk that over with the flood commission.
Oh, okay. Okay.
His
I
name
guess
is-
that's for another day, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
His name is John Gwynn.
Okay, John Gwynn, I will remember you. Okay. But yeah, so just breaking into that, I guess if they would have to do that construction, then to put up those homes, which we are not in favor of, I guess we would have to be aware of what's going on with our hay property next to that mobile home that is there, because that is farmland next to that mobile home. So, yeah. And I think that's it. But if we could just keep it as is, I'm sure the town of Hatch would love that. And that's all.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Give them to staff, okay?
No further comments.
No further. Commission discussion or questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
maybe the gentleman with the flood control could answer this. So the elevation of this property is below the bottom of the arroyo. So how much distance are we talking about? Are we talking about 6 inches or are we talking about 5 feet?
John Gwynn from the Flood Commission. I don't have an exact number for you because it varies throughout. And it depends on how big the edge of the arroyo is built up, but it's not significant. It's a foot, maybe 2 feet at most. So it's very close, but you have to remember that if you think of the EBID infrastructure that's below the arroyo, that's below existing ground, which on the outsides. And so the bottom of the arroyo is above that. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Does that help you? It's not an exact number, but
Thanks.
other questions?
John, there's this one sentence in the comments that said the Flood Commission would not approve or support a subdivision of this property for purposes of future development, period. I mean, that sounds like an absolute to me.
You're correct. That does sound like an absolute. And the question is for us, we would love for it to be farmland instead of development, because if it does get flooded, there's much less damage in terms of life and property. However, we're not against development, and we don't want to stand in the way of development, but it has to be responsible, and it needs to follow codes.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, John.
Mr. Chair, just one,
Yes.
just to verify, actually, Mr. Mayanis, this question would be for you, but just kind of based on the minimum lot size, that is intended in your plan, and the size of the parcel, I'm estimating a maximum of about 7 dwelling units.
Again, I haven't, Anton Maganes, Moy Surveying, I haven't spoken with him about what type of layout they're looking at specifically. And so to say that they want to have, the summary subdivision requires us to only have 5 lots or less. And so I could say that there is the summary subdivision process versus a full-fledged subdivision, they take the same process in that they're still an official subdivision. It's just that one of them can be handled administratively, rather the full-fledged subdivision, 5 lots or more than 5 lots, would have to get voted upon by BOCC and so forth. So I suspect that their layout would have 5 lots or less at that.
And that's with the assumption of the NMED required, you said 0.8 acres per unit?
Assuming that they wanted a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, yeah. If they were saying, let's just make them the minimum lot size, then it'd be the 0.75 acres at 5 lots. Yeah.
Thank you.
The only comment I was going to make is that I do, of course, and again, I might ask the Flood Commission to just clarify this, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't believe that it's that the pad of these houses and or mobile homes have to be at or above the elevation of the arroyo. It's just that if we had a breach, that arroyo is going to inundate a certain land mass or land size area to a certain elevation. And it's that certain elevation of the water, given a certain size flood, that we have to be at or above. So it's not that we have to build, is that fair to say? It's not that we have to build the houses and homes at or above the bottom elevation of the arroyo. It's just that in this inundated area, given a breach, we'd have to be at or above that. I do agree that in a perfect world, we would have no flood zones and everything would be channelized and people wouldn't have to pay flood insurance. But again, it's not uncommon. I probably get 5 or 10 of them a week with elevation certificates because there are, of course, homes throughout our county that are within a flood zone. Mm-hmm. And so because they should have just the ability to develop their land as well, agreeing with what the Flood Commission says, we want to make sure that we're at or above that base flood elevation so that in the event of a flood, they will in fact not lose their homes, hopefully. That's what the whole purpose of this would be. But of course, if any traditional mortgage is acquired or required for any of these homes, flood insurance will be required. It's only a cash purchase, or if they were building and no note was acquired, would they not have to then incur flood insurance? And that's typically not the case. Thank you.
Albert, anything else?
I have a question for Albert, if I might.
Go.
Albert, is there any plans or is there any natural drainage off of that property in question where if in event of a flood, will the water move out naturally or is it going to be ponding?
I mean, without, Commissioner Herrera, without looking at a grading and drainage plan of what's being proposed, I wouldn't be able to tell. I don't know.
You actually ask a very good question. These properties are pretty flat. The farm field is pretty well leveled. If you were to look, and I don't know if we have any, we probably don't have anything that shows the river, do we?
The river, just a canal.
So the river, the Rio Grande is just below these properties, below the Canal Street Bridge. And there's a levee that follows around the river. So when this water gets down to those properties, it has no place to go. So your question about ponding, currently the way it's laid out, there will be ponding, for sure. That's one of the reasons why this is considered a flood zone, is because of the ponding aspects of it.
Thank you.
So the master drainage plan would have to include ponding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay.
Commissioners, the only thing I would add would be to keep in mind what's currently allowed by right now. They can have a home on there, and they can have 2 accessory dwellings with just a mobile home permit or building permit. So that's something that's allowed by right. Under the T2 zoning, if the property owner had 5 family members, immediate family members, brothers, sisters, sons, nephews, each family member is entitled already to a lot. There's some restrictions with the claim of exemptions where, you know, if a family member gets a lot, they can't sell it within 5 years, but that's about the only restriction that's there. Of course, keeping in mind that even claim of exemptions or summary subdivisions, they do have to go out to agency review. So whatever is submitted is going to be reviewed by the Flood Commission, engineering, and the fire marshal as well. So just keep those points in mind.
Any other questions? No, ma'am. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll do it. And based on the findings of fact, staff analysis, and agency comments, I'll move approval of case Z22-0011, zone change on the 11.5 acre parcel from T2 to T3 in order to subdivide the property into lots less than the required 2 acre minimum.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Lear. Is there any further discussion? Mel, this is
Yes.
Commissioner Acosta is attending remotely. Did you have any comments?
A comment would be for me, as we go along to vote, we have to base it on, land use and also taking into consideration the safety and general welfare of the public around them. And so I would urge the commissioners to consider that.
Thank you. I just want to remind everybody, approval of the zone change doesn't approve a subdivision. it just approves the land use and increases its potential. Any other discussion? Elaine, you want to call the roll, please?
Commissioner Zarges,
Aye.
Commissioner Herrera,
No.
Commissioner Montañez,
No.
Commissioner Lear,
No.
Commissioner Acosta,
No.
Chair Zerniak,
Aye. What's the vote? 4-2. 4-2? Okay, in accordance with, well, the commissioners that voted no need to give a reason, if you would.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mel?
I would have based my opinion regarding that issue. Certainly, we wouldn't. Certainly, I don't think that let's put it this way: if my opinion is that there's various issues there involving that. And my concern is the safety and general welfare of the public. That's what we're here for. Even though there is, by right, to have that could be done, but when you base the overall factors regarding this issue, I think that my answer is based on that, and that's basically on land use and the reasons why we have land use ordinances.
Okay, thank you, Mel.
Mr. Chair, based on the findings of fact by the Flood Commission and the recommendation of the expansion of the arroyo and the further maintenance of the arroyo adjacent to this lot on Castaneda Road is my reason for a no vote.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Dan?
I would agree with my colleague here, Steve. That was my reason for voting no also.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
My reason for voting no is because I do have a concern of the residents. If mobile homes do come into that property, and if there is another 100 or 500-year flood, that even though that ditch might be remade or made higher, there's still also, that water comes down very, very fast. And I've seen it. I've seen it when it comes down fast. I know I'm familiar with the area very well. So erosion is something that takes a lot of money to correct, even by lining the ditches with pillars to slow it down and cement to keep it channeling right. But I believe that if residents ever have that kind of a flooding there, they're going to be losing out a lot of money and maybe even some, hope not, deaths, injuries. And so that was my reason. It's for safety concerns.
Thank you. Motion's defeated. Thank you very much, everyone. Next case is Z22016.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
just to let you know, I'm on the line here. Commissioner Castañeda,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Charlene Santisteban, 845 North Milltown Boulevard, Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're here listening to the zone case of Z22016 and SU 22034. I will present the zone change first and then roll into the special use permit, but there will be 2 votes for each, for the zone change and the special use permit. The owner of the property, it's for a solar energy farm. The owner of the property is the state of Margaret Petrosky, and the applicant is the BAP Power Corporation, DBA Synergy. It's located, it has access from Ojo de Tigre Avenue. It's east of Las Cruces. The present zoning is D1L, Low Density Zoning Limited, and they want to go to a T2 rural, which allows a solar farm with a special use permit. Zone change on a 32.06 acre parcel from a D1L Low Density Residential Limited to a T2 rural for a community solar generating facility on 32 acres to be known as the Petrosky Solar Project. And this is the location map. That's a zoomed photo of the property. And this is the site plan. This is the zoning map. The project will be comprised of single-access tracking systems, solar modules that will move slowly from east to west through the day, tracking the sun. It will be DC to AC power equipment, and it will be connected to the utility distribution system. The entire project premise will be contained within an 8-foot fence and with locked access gate and appropriate signage to prevent trespassing. The property is located, it's located east of Las Cruces. And the New Mexico signed in the Community Solar Act, SB 94, in April 2021, which gives the authority for the solar farm. This is the land use around it. It's pretty vacant out there. It's very isolated. This is the entrance to the property. You get to the property from Holman on Barksdale. This is north Holman Avenue. Barksdale Loop it's a winding road. It's dirt, and it's a pretty rough road. You know, just putting pictures on here so you can see the little winding, the way it winds around there. This is the intersection of Ojo de Tigre and Barksdale Loop. And this is Ojo de Tigre looking east. This is the Petrosky, this is the sign, one of the signs on the Petrosky property. It's facing east. And this is facing north, south, east again, and west. And this is exiting Ojo de Tigre. The zone change evaluation requirements, the authority of the UDC gives the Planning Commission the authority to hear this case. The general notifications were sent out, 37 letters were sent out on October 4th. And legal ads were placed in the Las Cruces News October 2nd. And the signs were timely placed. These were the signs that were posted when they first went out there. This is the area of notification. This is the decisional criteria, potential number of homes. There's no homes being produced. No population will be increased. Demographics, the applicant states there will be no large impact to demographics. There will be traffic generated during the construction period of 6 to 8 months for the building of this solar farm. And after that, they'll have 1 to 2 trips per month for operation and maintenance. No proposed for commercial or residential activity, and it's an unstaffed utility. No need for potential water. No water is needed out there. They're going to have water trucked in for the construction, and a porta potty will be out there during construction and be removed from the property when it's completed. Environmental impacts, no significant impacts were found. And implementation of best practices, the applicant focused on operating and maintaining a high-performance solar facility as a full service provided from construction to operation. The project site will be monitored remotely 24 hours a day by the applicant's internal operation and maintenance. Section 35203, the cost of the economic considerations, they got some form of access for this land with the property owner. And the proposed project will be situated on a rural vacant land located away from public areas. It's very rural and very isolated. As the comprehensive plan, it goes in hand with strategy 3, prioritize infrastructure planning and investment, renewable energy. Goal 6.2, G6.2, making the county's economy more efficient. Goal G2.2, green infrastructure, renewable energy, and energy. The decisional criteria for the Miller case, the proposed zone change request meets the demands of a rural environment while addressing community affordability, infrastructure planning, and investment in renewable energy. The property is bounded by undeveloped vacant rural land in a remote location and not easily visible by public. Solar energy will provide an alternative source for energy, making the county's utilities more cost-effective. And the reason for it is usually a solar farm is placed, the only zone that's allowed is I-1, light industrial. T2 is a transect zone, and it's the only other zone that it's approved with a special use permit. So this is a lower density of use. There's no capital expenditure, no collector or major thoroughfare plans for a roadway. It's not strip zoning, and it is not considered spot zoning. Findings: the property is outside of any incorporated municipal zoning authority, and it is within the Doña County, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has jurisdiction to review this case. The request of the applicant is consistent with the requirements of the UDC. The zone change for a T2 does satisfy the decision criteria for the zone change. T2 district would not be considered spot zoning as the proposed zone is in harmony with surrounding areas and the size of the development is appropriate for the area. And there will be a benefit to the community. The findings there's no significant conflict with the comprehensive plan. Based on the findings of the fact analysis, agency comments, staff recommends approval for case Z22016 on a 32.06 acre parcel from D1L, low density residential, to T2 rural for a 32 acre community solar generating facility to be known as Petrosky Solar Project. And this is T2 is a lower density zone from a D1L. This is for I'm going into the special use permit now. There's no impacts to traffic. There's no commercial or residential activity being proposed. There's no existing infrastructure in the property, and there is not proposed for none to be built. Portable toilets and water will be trucked in. There's no existing infrastructure on the property, and the project site will not require any new infrastructure. No environmentally sensitive areas in the vicinity. There will not be a significant impact on surrounding properties. The property is surrounded by vacant rural and agricultural land in a remote location. The applicant focuses on operating and maintaining a high-performing solar facility as a full service provided from construction to operation. The project site will be remotely monitored 24 hours a day. Findings: the property is outside of any incorporated municipal zoning authority, and is within the Doñana County, and Planning and Zoning Commission has jurisdiction to review the case. The request of the application is consistent with the UDC, and the general notice requirements were met. The request for a special use permit does satisfy the decisional criteria. The special use permit is in harmony with the surrounding areas. The size of the development is appropriate. And the Flood Commission sent a comment that they are in the late stages of design on a 5.2-mile open channel referred to as Dragonfly Channel that will be directly adjacent to the property to the north. Construction is expected to start spring 2023 and could potentially be ongoing for several years. It will not impact the property, but it's right up against the property line. Comes from the fire department. They need to have a roadway that can hold 75,000 pounds and a turnaround for emergency personnel, and that in accordance with the 2015 International Fire Code, Chapter 5, Section 503, on and on. Staff recommendations based on the findings of fact. We recommend approval for SU 22034. Applicant shall obtain approval of a zone change for case number Z22016 in order for the SUP to be approved. It's not a solid wall, I didn't take that out. It's a chain link fence, 8 feet high, shall be constructed around the perimeter of the facility. A remediation and decommissioning plan shall be submitted at the time of the building permit submittal. The plan shall include the following: the anticipated means and costs of removing the solar facilities, provisions for the removal of all structures and foundations, the removal of all electrical transmission components, the restoration of soil and vegetation, and a soundly based plan ensuring financial resources will be available to fully decommission the site. Facility equipment, including inverters, transformers, switch gears to be removed from their respective concrete pads, recycled or returned to the manufacturer for processing, chain link fence to be removed and sold or recycled, PV modules to be recycled or reused, racking systems to be cut, stacked, and recycled, resold, or reused, all concrete be removed and recycled, AC and DC wiring that will be disconnected and removed from the equipment shall be considered for recycling. On-site power poles and medium voltage wiring shall be removed unless poles were pre-existing. Reseeding a vegetative layer where impacts occurred. And I submitted a letter of opposition. I got that email, so I pass it out to you on the case. Any questions?
Questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. I noticed that you, in your findings, you said that you found that this does not qualify for spot zoning. When I look at the map, I don't see any other T2 within a half mile of this property. So I guess I don't understand why that would not be considered spot zoning.
Well, it's still residential zoning. It's a lower density of zoning. The D1L is a higher density of potential homes that can be there. So it's actually going down in its zoning.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, when I look at the zoning map, it looks like an island of T2 in the middle of
Yes.
no T2 anywhere near it. So I guess I'm just trying to clarify the definition of spot zoning, because this certainly appears to be that.
Yeah, it's surrounded by federal land. It's a larger parcel of land. The T1 zone is for an acre and a half. This is a 2-acre lot. And yes, it does look like a spot zoning, but it is a lower density use, which around it could go to a lower density use also. There isn't, the lots that are out there are pretty big. They're large. I think it would be in harmony with what's around there. And yes, it could look as like a T2 zone, but staff doesn't believe that it would be, it's spot zoning, because it's still a residential use, and it's low impact.
Okay, thank you.
It's more than just the fact that it's an isolated parcel. It also has to do with the fact that there's a community benefit to the zone change. If the benefit solely went to the property owner, that would qualify as a spot zone. But since there's a community benefit to it, it's allowed, or it can be allowed, I should say. Okay, we should probably take a, not in this case, but we should take a closer look at how you define a spot zone.
Thank you, Chairman.
I have a different question. Can you go back to your Miller criteria?
Sure.
Generally, I mean, it says here that the justification for changing the zoning is either a change in condition or to correct the defect. So how does your justification address that?
I addressed it by looking at the remoteness of the rural environment. And of course, what you just mentioned, the community benefit for the use of the land. And it's, usually these properties are on a 25-year lease. So the land will go back to its original use, its original standard as it is right now.
Right.
So that was my reasoning for it, looking at that.
But what's the change of condition that justifies that? This is an old question that comes up.
Yeah, it's a Senate bill that was passed by New Mexico to allow solar farms to be built.
Okay, I want that stated on the record.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, let's hear from the applicant.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
William Heck, 507 Eagle Vista Drive, Henderson, Nevada.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about the project. At the forefront, I appreciate staff's comments and conditions, and the company supports the conditions as proposed, and of course, you would comply with any of those conditions. Staff presented, should you concur with them. Thought it might be valuable to talk a little bit about the company and then solar in general, and I would like to also address some of the comments that we've received from the public, and we're thankful for that. But at the outset, so you know, BAP Power, doing business as Synergy Power, has more than 14 years of commercial and utility solar experience, and we are vertically integrated. We go out and do the development like we're doing today, as well as doing the design with the assistance from our New Mexico partners and professional engineers, do the procurement and ultimately the construction. So far, we've completed more than 400 projects with more than 400 megawatts of power across 13 U.S. states, including Hawaii. We do have a bonding capacity of up to $150 million. And I offer this for two reasons. One is the financial probity to both complete the project as well as to provide for the decommissioning of the project in the future. I wanted to address some general, I'd like to address some general things about solar PV technology. And this goes to community concerns more than anything else. But folks should know that the facility is designed by licensed engineers from all of the different engineering trades, civil structure, electrical design, as well as erosion, most importantly here, stormwater and sediment control. We, of course, would have all the necessary permits in place, and we are National Electrical Code compliant, consistent with the code that has been adopted here within the county. We do provide a perimeter fence to prevent trespassing, and that's consistent with the National Electrical Code. We will maintain vegetation so that there is not overgrowth or a fire hazard. And by and large, we do monitor these projects remotely and come to the project when there's a problem or for annual maintenance. There's been some concern, both noise, electromagnetic fields, and we should note that the device on a solar field that makes noise is the inverter. It changes DC into alternating current. That has a fan in it. That is the moving part. Two things about that fan. One, once you get off site, the noise level, and I believe we've put a map in for this project, the noise level rapidly drops to that of a whisper. I think by the time you get 150 feet away, it's a quiet library. But also we're aware that there's a 50 decibel requirement, overnight requirement within the county. And these fans shut off at night. They run during the day when it's hot. So essentially it's noiseless at night, and well within that 50 dB requirement. After you get about 150 feet away, it gets pretty difficult to hear them. Electromagnetic fields are another concern, and you see studies in both directions on that. But more specifically, these are, I'm going to say, commercial voltage projects. 277, 480 is the operating voltage of the power plant. That would be consistent with any large commercial manufacturing facility that you may have in town. The inverters produce the strongest amount of that EMF when they're converting the DC power to the AC power. But it's certainly many times less powerful than the overhead lines that are currently existing. And as you create distance, it drops off. I believe it's called root mean square, but it drops off rapidly. So that by the time, again, like the noise, once you get about 150 feet away, those electromagnetic fields cannot be tweezed out between what you would normally see from the Earth's electromagnetic field. In the case of this project, of course, it does need to be connected to the grid. We are using the existing power line to connect this facility to the El Paso electric grid. There are no new power lines except for the pole on the project site proposed for this project. We also think there's benefits for the community. Locally generated power, of course, less commitment to rooftop solar with the issues that may bring with winds. It's, of course, 100% renewable energy, quiet, self-sufficient, low profile. We were out there looking at actually two other solar projects that are located nearby, and it's pretty hard to see those. And it provides for economic growth. It's consistent with the state of New Mexico. We're zero emission, zero long-term environmental impact, and safe for wildlife and birds. Generally on wildlife and birds, I believe it's in the packet, but there's burrowing owl habitat and the potential for migratory birds. And there is a recommendation that we will comply with, and that is should an owl be discovered, then we will work with the appropriate agency to relocate that owl. For the migratory birds, we will avoid working on the site during the nesting periods and the overflight periods. The project itself, or more specifically the project, as staff has mentioned, it's on about 32 acres, of which we'll be using about 30 or so. It's 7.2 probably megawatts DC, 5 megawatts AC. That is consistent with the regulation of the state of New Mexico for the community solar program. The power will be sold locally or throughout the EPE area, as I'm sure you've heard many, many times by now. Certainly a substantial amount of that power will go to low-income housing and to the constituents of the county. Yes, sir.
A certain percentage of that has to go to low income.
30%, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that has to go in low-income housing. Again, I mentioned Synergy is a vertically integrated company. We do have our own outreach. Gentleman's name is Micah Vetter. He's out there working with housing authorities and others to procure the purchasers for that energy. it is our belief that this project would align with the comprehensive plan. We believe it supports economic benefits and affordability for the residents, as has been emphasized in the comprehensive plan. We will allot at least 30% of the power generation to low-income housing, of course, and perhaps more, as that's a statutory minimum. We believe it promotes the health and safety and general welfare of the residents for a lot of different reasons. From the micro position that we're providing this renewable energy here within the community, to the macro position that we're avoiding emissions on a broader scale, and of course a part of what the state has envisioned, state government has envisioned for the state. We will not be leaning on county infrastructure, so we don't require sewer. We'll of course pay EP for the interconnection. We don't anticipate additional use for the fire department. By the way, we did see the need for the road out there. Two things on the road. We will construct the road for the fire department, the 75,000 pound limit with the appropriate hammerhead turnarounds. We will also very likely be doing some repair work on the access road, which I think will benefit the residents there as well. That road is sorely in need of some attention. Yeah, no sewer requirement, no water. As far as cleaning the panels, right, we do use some water, but we truck that water in. It's demineralized water. The reason it's demineralized is when we clean the panels, which we generally do once a year, maybe not even then, depending on what the rain has been, but we truck in demineralized water and brush it like you clean a window on your house, and then squeegee it off. There's no surfactants, there's no fancy chemicals, there's no anything. It's just plain old water that's sprayed on and scraped off. I may have neglected to add earlier, there's no cadmium, other exotic heavy metals that some folks may be concerned with. There is a solar technology that deploys that type of material. This technology does not. It's sand, glass, aluminum, maybe a little bit of galvanized steel in the posts, and of course all that will be removed at the end, which kind of gets us to decommissioning. At the end of the project life, if it is not extended, then we would return the site to substantially the same as it was before. Now, what do I mean by substantially? We would, of course, remove all of the above ground equipment, remove all of the concrete pads, remove the gravel roads, remove the wire from underground. We typically would not dig up and remove the underground conduits. We would cut those off at grade or a little bit below grade, and then revegetate with whatever the natural grasses and plants are at that time, so that it's consistent with the character of the surrounding community. With that, I think I've covered the project. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and thank you for your time in listening to me.
Shannon, can you bring up the air photo? I just have a quick question. That's fine. Can you show us where you'll connect to the existing grid?
Yes, sir. You could see where, and I'll screw this up, I have the Tiger Avenue, Oyo de Tigre, right? There is an existing power line there. It is a single-phase power line that terminates just west of the project site, down, right there. So if we go 200 feet west of there is the end of the existing EPE circuit, and that is our connection point.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So the existing power lines are on Ojo de Tigre?
Yes, sir.
They're not on, because the letter that we were given here for opposition was saying that they have no opposition for placement of the power lines along Ojos de Tigre. So that's where all the lines are at, and that's where you're going to connect to.
Yes, sir.
Okay, also on your, where's your rectifier units going to be located?
Pardon me?
Your rectifier units,
The
Or your-
inverters. Do we have the application packet that? Or if we could get to the site plan.
layout.
I'm sorry, I should have done that.
It's okay.
Okay, so, and that's a little tough to see. But on the end of the access road, there's two inverter pads there, so they are on the north side of the access road. Yeah,
It kind of disappears.
You want to use the arrow?
but right there, right there, you can see the road comes in and turns to the right. The inverter pads are right there. On the north side of the access road, there's a little black spot. Maybe I could steer here. Let's see. Or maybe I can't. Oops. Okay, if we take the cursor, right there is the inverter pad.
So how far is that from the nearest residence? There's no residence nearby that, right?
The nearest residence, I believe, is more than 600 feet.
Okay, because I'm familiar with the conversion units, or you call them rectifiers. I worked with them in a company that I used to work for. And yeah, the fans do make some kind of noise, but I don't believe it's, at 600 feet, I don't believe that's going to be a significant noise level.
I concur. We did do a noise evaluation, and I believe that was provided in your packet at some point. We did it fairly recently. That showed that at the nearest residence, the sound level was less than 40 dB, less than 30 dB, which equated to less than the noise you would experience in a quiet library, was the legend from the Google search.
Right. And the units are enclosed, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, they're not open.
They come in an NEC
Instrumentations and all that,
enclosure.
they're only.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we don't put them in a building, but they do come in an enclosure.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mel?
Did the presenter say something about a owl habitat, or maybe I misunderstood in that lot?
One of the agencies responded that there is the potential for burrowing owl habitat. And the recommendation of the agency is that should we encounter a burrowing owl, that we have the contact the agency for relocation.
And who would be the contacting agency regarding that issue?
Say again, Mel?
Who would be the agency involved to remove or replace or the habitat for that owl or owls?
DFW, but let me find if I could have just one moment, I believe I have the actual. This is New Mexico Department of Game and Fish.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Anybody else? Okay. Is there anyone here opposed or in favor? Elaine, do you have anybody on the list?
Yes, I have one person, Carolyn Banks.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Carolyn Banks, 3800 East Loman, Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. My name is Carolyn Banks. I am the attorney for the estate of Margaret Petrowski. And I'm here to just add my support to the use of the property for a solar facility. Particularly since it's going to be called the Petrowski Solar Facility. I think that Margaret and her husband would be pleased to know that this is how their property is being used. As you may know, Margaret and her husband purchased the property out there to do some subdividing, And the thought was that eventually it would be out to the East Mesa. I think the problem is that we all know is that there's not a lot of water out there. And there's no sewer lines, and there's simply nothing to support that kind of infrastructure, at least at this point. So when after Margaret died, the trust officer was looking for ways to use this property that would be beneficial to the community. It was actually something they could do without a significant expense. So when they were contacted by the solar facility, they were excited because this didn't require any water, didn't require any sewer. There weren't things that had to be done to disrupt the neighborhood where Ms. Petrowski's daughter still lives. And they were excited about this, particularly given the name. So I wanted you to know that the estate of Margaret Petrowski is very much supportive of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Frank.
I would like to ask the gentleman, again, one more question. Are the units air-cooled, or or is there any water-cooled being considered on that?
They're air-cooled.
Air-cooled.
The inverters themselves are air-cooled. There is no fans associated with modules. I mean, they're technically air-cooled, but it's free air. There's no forced air on the
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Anyone else, Eileen? Yes, what,
Okay.
gentleman?
Stephen Bendel?
My wife has a medical condition and her immune system doesn't work right now, and I work in a hospital, so I've been wearing this thing for about a year.
Just get close to the mic, okay?
Yeah, of course.
Good morning. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, of course. My name is Stephen Bendel. My address is 7795 El Centro Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to make a few comments. So I'm a resident.
I'm
in
sorry,
this-
Mr. Bethel. We're going to have to ask that you get as close to that microphone as possible.
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm a resident in the immediate area. I believe my lot is within 0.25 mile of the proposed site. So I think a little bit of the language presented by Ms. Santisteban was a little bit disingenuous. That is, as Mr. Herrera had pointed out, a residential area. All of the lots around there are occupied by families. And I think that they had mentioned like a 600 feet distance between like the plant and the nearest residence. You know, my residence is within a quarter mile. That would be, like 13 or 1,400 feet. And there is one residence actually closer than mine, about half of that distance. So there are quite a few residences in that area. In the application that was sent to me by Ms. Santisteban, it had represented the power lines that would be constructed from this site to the El Paso electric grid as being along our travel easement to get into our properties, which I think would present a significant complication for us because we do travel along that. The power lines would be within an extremely short distance of our houses. I'm a medical professional. I've printed numerous studies that do delineate some of the health risks for folks living in very close proximity to high voltage power lines. There are none currently existing in that immediate area. I do think, I can't imagine that this does not meet the quintessential definition of spot zoning, as there are no rural plots in that immediate vicinity. So overall, I would like to voice my opposition to the construction of this project. I know other residences in the area, the occupants of whom were not able to attend today, will also oppose it. I don't know of anyone who's actually really in favor of them building a plant here. I do believe it presents health risks. I believe it could devalue the local properties. I do feel it presents kind of an aesthetic burden on everyone who lives in the area. I don't believe it's consistent with Doñana County's goal of like increasing the health and welfare of those in the immediate area. And I don't really ultimately see why it's necessary to build a solar plant in the direct center of a residential area. Even if it's low density residential, I think it's kind of ridiculous that this has to be done. And I absolutely and fervently oppose it. So.
Thank you.
And I did write an email to the commission. I believe you guys should have a copy of. I don't know if there's a possibility to ask a question, but the gentleman, Mr. Heck, had kind of mentioned power lines being constructed going towards Ojo del Tigre. I would ask on record if he could kind of delineate exactly where those will be. Because I do not really see on the map where he believes those
Speak into the mic, okay?
Sorry about that. I'm wondering where those high voltage power lines are actually going to be placed. Because in the application, it's not the same as the track that he had just kind of mentioned. So that's something we definitely need to ascertain, I think, before there's any further discussion.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all my commentary, but I believe there's another neighbor here who will also be making some commentary. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Would you like to address that?
Yes, Commissioners. If we look at the site plan, you'll see a dotted line with OH in it. That OH stands for overhead. That is the existing El Paso Electric overhead distribution system. It comes up past to the east side of the last residence on the north side of the existing distribution on, and I'll screw up the word, on Ojo Tigre Street. But I can assure to you under penalty of perjury that there are poles and power lines out there. And that is our intended point of interconnection. And those are the pole lines that serve the residences along the street today.
So you're building a connection where the solid black line is?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody? Steve? Okay.
I have one last individual,
Yep.
James Hercasitas.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for having us here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
James Orcasitas, 4929 Skyview Lane.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Just had a few points on this. I'm the little dotted box on the very southern end of that road, that little access road. That's property I purchased from Mrs. Petrowski.
Wait, can you use the arrow and show us the mouse?
You said 4272 Skyview Lane?
4929, that's in Doñana right now. This is the property that I purchased several years ago from Mrs. Petrowski, and with the intention of building my house on it, but according to local prices skyrocketing, the building kind of slowed down and went to pretty much a stop right now. We're currently putting up a fence there, but this is our little piece of heaven where there's nobody can build around us. We're out in the country like I prefer to be. I just retired from 20 years of fire service with the city of Las Cruces, and this is my retirement. This is me to go away and just kind of be left alone. So my first thing is firefighting requirements. You have a large commercial structure, a large facility there with zero water input on it. And the access you stated, sir, Mr. Heck, I appreciate you being here, was from Ojo de Tigre, from Barksdale Loop. That is a long distance. That is a windy, as the young lady said earlier and showed us pictures, it is a windy, treacherous road, and a fire apparatus is not gonna make it down that road anytime soon. So just a heads up is that, with the size of building you're gonna have there, the amount of commercial ability, everything, and electrical, with the surrounding area being covered in about foot tall to 2 foot of grass. To me, it's a big fire hazard, the way the winds move going straight to the organs. We've already had several spot fires out there throughout the year while I'm out there working. I've had to spot a few myself. So it's a little, I'm leery with that when you say you don't need water, you don't need fire, we're making access for it. Been around it long enough so I kind of know the difference. So that's just a firefighting point I had. And which road I was kind of wondering about access, on a plan I saw, they want to widen the little dotted line road here to 20 foot. And then there's also a marker that shows overhead lines to go to the, down a little bit farther south, there's the EPE transmissions lines that go to a substation, the Moongate substation, which down here in this empty lot, kind of located over here to the southeast. It shows that they're going to connect to those lines. So has that changed, Mr. Heck?
Wait, go ahead and finish your presentation, then we'll let them speak.
Okay, and so there's understanding that this road was going to be widened to 20 feet, and this one was going to be connected as well. My kids go trekking out here all the time, and this is a treacherous little area right now, so that's going to be fun to drive in and out of right now. High lines, I'm not against solar at all. By all means, I appreciate it, and we do need it. We needed other ways to get it, safe ways, but overhead power lines. I didn't move out into the country to have power lines running across all over the place. Underground power lines, I did underground construction before I got into firefighting. It can be done. Underground construction happens all day long. Horizontal drilling, it can be done. Overhead power lines, to me, is just how beautiful are our Oregon mountains? They're on your banner back there. I don't want that obstructed. The community benefit, that kind of thing kind of gets me. And the decommissioning, is this just a standard program just to come in, get the standard program to take care of it? Is it part of a national program? I don't understand that till they already have the decommission of, oh, if it doesn't work out or the money runs out, we're done. That's just, to me, my questions. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Mr. Heck?
I would defer to the fire chief on the concerns about equipment access, and we'll be providing that access consistent with what the fire department requests of us. I agree that the road that goes out there right now does need work, and that is work that we will have to do consistent with the building department. There's residences there now. I would hope that there's a provision for fighting a fire at a residence, and while there is the potential for electrical fires in a PV plant, they are generally speaking isolated. We're talking about steel glass insulation, in this case for something that could burn, and perhaps the inverters. So I believe the potential there is smaller, but again, we defer to the fire department and what they think is the best way to do this, and based on their comments, we will comply with that. There may have been, regarding site access, there may at one time have been consideration of access from the south of the property. That is not what we're asking for. That is not the current design. We are not installing, except at the project site, additional power lines using existing poles, pole right-of-way. So we will not be adding high voltage. In fact, I would call it distribution voltage, but that means different things to different people, high voltage. It's using those existing power lines rather than constructing new power lines. The access is not from the south. And I think that's it, unless you'd like me to expand on that further. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing further.
Okay, so we'll close it to public input. Comments, questions discussion from the commission? Call for the question. This is on the zoning.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of case number Z22-016, based on the findings of fact and staff analysis. A zone change on a 32.06 acre parcel from D1L zone to a T2 zone for a 32 acre solar generating facility to be known as the Petrowski Solar Project.
Can I get a second? Got a motion and a second. Elaine, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Herrera,
Yes.
Commissioner Zarges,
Aye.
Commissioner Montañez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lear,
Yes.
Commissioner Acosta,
Yes.
Commissioner Castañeda,
Yes.
Chair Zarniak.
Yes. Now for the special use permit, SU 22-034. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of case number SU 22-034 to allow for 30 acre solar generating facility to be known as the Petrowski Solar Project. And I will be reading the following conditions. Number one, applicant shall obtain approval of the zone change in order for the SUP to be approved. A chain link or agricultural fence 8 feet high shall be constructed around the perimeter of the facility. Condition 3, a remediation and decommissioning plan of the site shall be submitted at the time of the building permit submittal. Plan shall include the following: the anticipated means and costs of removing the solar facilities, precisions for the removal of all structures and foundations, the removal of all electrical transmission components, restoration of soil and vegetation, and soundly-based plan ensuring financial resources will be available to fully decommission the site. Facility equipment, including inverters, transformers, and switchgear, to be removed from their respective concrete pads if applicable and recycled to, or returned to manufacturer for processing. Chain link fencing to be removed and sold or recycled. PV modules to be recycled or reused. Racking system to be cut, stacked, and recycled, resold, or reused. All concrete will be removed and recycled. AC and DC wiring can be disconnected and removed from the equipment, and the earth will be consolidated for recycling. On-site power poles and medium voltage wiring shall be removed unless poles were pre-existing, and reseeding of the vegetative layer where impacts occurred.
I'll second that motion.
I'm gonna add 3 things. So number 1, I'm gonna add the requirement of Fish and Wildlife for notification if they find a burrowing owl. Second, I'd like to add the requirements of the fire marshal as stated in the packet. And third, I'd like to add the comment from the Flood Commission, which says there should be no conflict between the 2 projects, the Flood Commission project and the proposed solar facility. Can you be okay with that?
Yes, I accept this, thank you.
Call for the question.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
there was a comment made on that road. Who's going to be in charge of road maintenance on that road?
It's a county road, I believe.
Is there a road maintenance agreement in place?
It's a private road, but it has an easement.
Which means what?
They have an easement, a 40-foot easement from Barksdale all the way up to Tigre de Oro.
So the residents are responsible for maintenance?
Yes.
What about,
Until they bring it up to standard and they can request the county adopt it. But
what
it has
about, what about road improvements as required by the fire marshal?
to-
Is it
It's up to the applicant to do that.
up to the applicant? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
on the discussion on the motion still, So if the fire marshal says they need to meet fire minimum standards, right?
Right.
Could that be included in part of the motion?
Yes, I added it as a requirement, Mel, to the special
All
use.
right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
thank you.
Just to confirm, though, I had the motion by Commissioner Montañez and the second by Commissioner Lear.
That's fine.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Commissioner Acosta,
Yes.
Commissioner Castañeda,
Yes.
Commissioner Lear,
Yes.
Commissioner Montañez,
Yes.
Commissioner Herrera,
Yes.
Commissioner Zarges,
Yes.
Chair Zerniak.
Yes, motion is approved. Thank you very much. Next case, Z22-018.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Charlene Santisteban, 845 North Motel Boulevard, Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
Steve, do you want us to take a recess for a few minutes? Okay, all right. Sorry. Go ahead, Charlie.
We're on agenda, listening to a zone change and a special use permit, Z22018 and SU 22038.
Lower the mic.
03. You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, and as with our prior case, we will hear the zone change case first, then go into the special use permit, and with two different motions to vote. The owner applicant is Benz Ltd. Company 1634047, that's what it says on the deed. And the applicant is Wildcat Renewables LLC. The location is the corner of Cortez Drive and Model Drive. And it's close to the city limits, east of Las Cruces. The zoning is D1L, Low Density Residential Limited. They want to go to a T2 rural, a zone change on a vacant 70-acre parcel from a D1L, Low Density Residential Limited, to a T2 rural for a community solar generating facility on 33.9 acres to be known as the Cortez Drive Solar Project. This is location map. A zoomed photo of the land. This is the site plan. The zoning map. The city limits are in black, and the gray is federal land. The project will be comprised of single axle tracking system that will slowly move from east to west through the day, tracking the sun. The ancillary electrical distribution system with the project includes inverters and converters. The PV generated electricity from DC to AC, power and equipment to connect to the utility distribution system. The entire project premise will be contained within an 8-foot chain link fence with locked access gates and appropriate signage to prevent trespassing. The property is located east of Las Cruces, near the city limits of Las Cruces. As per the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission, they signed the Community Solar Act, SB 94, into law April 2021 by Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. This is an aerial of the land use surrounding the property. And this is the entrance to go into Cortez Drive, facing east. And this is the city limit sign, and this is where the pavement ends. Cortez Drive is a city street maintained by the city, and it ends right there at the city limit line, and then goes into Cortez as a dirt road. This is the property to the north, the south, the east, and the west, taken from the road. I didn't walk into the middle of 70 acres to take the picture. And this is Cortez and Mauro Drive. This is the intersection there. The zone change evaluation requirements is provided by the UDC, 350, 104, 202, 203, and 203D, the decisional criteria. The general notification, 17 letters of notification were mailed to the property owners within the area on October 17th. And we got 3 emails were received in opposition concerning improvements to Cortez Drive and their view of the Organ Mountains. And I've passed those comments out to you. Legal ads were placed in the Las Cruces Sun News on October 18th. Signs were posted on the property in a timely manner. An agenda was posted on the DAC website. These are the signs that were put out there at the beginning. This is the area of notification map. This is the decisional criteria. There are no homes being proposed, no impacts to population, no impacts to demographics. Traffic will increase during construction of 6 to 8 months, and after construction, it'll be 1 to 2 trips per month for operation and maintenance. No need for community or solar. The proposed solar community is neither commercial nor residential. It's an unstaffed utility. There's no potential for water or sewer. There will be, water will be trucked in for the construction phase, and a porta potty will be brought in for the construction phase. There are no significant impacts were found. The proposed project would be situated on rural vacant land located in a remote location away from public areas. The applicant focuses on operating and maintaining a high-performance solar facility, first service provided from construction to operation, and remotely monitored 24 hours a day. The decisional criteria is they retained access to 70 acres of vacant land by Wildcat Renewables LLC. The proposed project would be situated on rural land located away from public areas. The parcel is currently zoned D1L, low density limited, going to a T2 rural. Is a transect zone with a 2-acre lot minimum for solar generating facilities. The zone change is in line with and adjacent with properties along also zones D2 rural and is a lower density residential zone. Just one moment. It's in the plan is in conformance with the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, Strategy 3, prioritize infrastructure planning and investment, renewable energy. Goal G 6.2, make the county's economy more efficient. Goal G 2.2, green infrastructure, renewable energy, and energy. The decisional criteria from Miller. The proposed zone change request meets the standards of rural environment while addressing community affordability, infrastructure planning, and investment in renewable energy. The property is bounded by undeveloped vacant rural land in a remote location, not easily visible by the public. The solar energy will provide an alternate source for energy, making the county's utilities more cost-effective. In addition, the change of the Senate bill. The change of And with the reasoning with Miller is the change of conditions and the solar bill being passed by the state. Oh, excuse me. Currently, the only zone that allows renewable energy is I-1, light industrial zone. Staff believes that a transit zone such as T2 with a special use permit would be appropriate for the requested land use, since a T2 is still low-density residential and only allows for a minimum of lot size of 2.0. The SUP will only allow for the proposed solar facility, requiring a new application for future expansion. Decisional criteria, there's no capital expenditure. The applicant is proposing a passive commercial use as a utility. No transportation thoroughfares will be significantly impacted. Strip zoning is not applicable. The zone change to a T2 district would not be considered spot zoning. And the definition that we have in the UDC for a spot zone is an attempt to, a spot zone is defined as an attempt to wrench a single lot from its environment and give it a new rating that disturbs the tenor of the neighborhood, and which affects only the use of a particular piece of property or a small group of adjoining properties, and is not related to the general plan for the contingency as a whole, but is primarily for the private interest of the owner of the parcel. Spot zoning is determined on an ad hoc basis depending on the facts and circumstances of each case. Factors to be considered are the disharmony with the surrounding area, the size of the area to be rezoned, and the benefit of the rezoning to the community or the owner of the parcel. The findings, the property is located outside of any incorporated municipal zoning authority, is within Doña Ana County, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has jurisdiction to review this case. The request of the applicant is consistent with the requirements of the UDC, and the general notifications were met for the zone change. The zone change request T2 does satisfy 350 203D decisional criteria, and the zone change is appropriate and reasonably necessary to protect the public interest. The T2 district would not be considered a spot zoning, as the proposed change is in harmony with the surrounding area. The size of the development is appropriate for the area, and there will be a benefit to the community for utility affordability. The zone change will not be in significant conflict with the comprehensive plan or other adopted approved county plans and amendments. Therefore, it is not in conflict with the following goals and actions of the comprehensive plan. Strategy 3, goal G 6.2, goal G 2.2, D action A 2.2. Based on the findings of fact, the staff analysis and agency comments, staff recommends approval of case number Z 22018, a zone change on a 70-acre parcel from a D1L low-density residential limited to a T2 rural zoning district for a 33.9-acre, 90-acre community solar generating facility to be known as Cortez Drive Solar Project. This is going into the special use permit. 22038. Potential impacts to traffic, there will be no traffic generated except during construction, which is a 6 to 8 month period. There will be minimal traffic after construction, 1 to 2 visits to the site per month. No need for commercial or residential activity. Water and sewer, no existing infrastructures out there right now, and water will be trucked in, and porta potties will be brought in during construction. Existing infrastructure capability, there is no existing infrastructure on the property, and the property site will not require any new infrastructure. No significant environmental impacts in the facility, The impacts of the proposed SUP on surrounding properties. There will not be a significant impact surrounding the properties. The property is surrounded by vacant rural land on the north, south, and east. Privately owned properties are located on the west. The implementation of best practices and for the development, installation of an 8-foot fence surrounding the facility. Solar panels will not increase impervious surface of the property. The project will require minimal grading to prepare the site for installation of solar equipment. Final erosion and sediment control design will maintain overland drainage patterns post-construction. The SWPPP will be filed during the building permitting stage. No lighting will be on site. The proposed site will be remotely monitored 24 hours a day. Findings: the property is outside of any incorporated municipal zoning authority, is within Doña Ana County, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has jurisdiction to review this case. The request of this applicant is consistent with the requirements of the UDC 350-202.B, 350-203 special use permit. The request for a special use permit does satisfy the decisional criteria, is appropriate and reasonably necessary to protect the public interest. The special use permit is in harmony with the surrounding areas, and the size of the development is appropriate for the area, and there will be a benefit to the community by increasing the availability of community affordability for a solar utility, and will capitalize upon the region's solar energy resources. The property is adjacent to the City of Las Cruces owned and operated flood control structure known as Waterfalls Pond. Additional information can be obtained from the City of Las Cruces Public Works Department. Of course, and the comments from the fire roadway needs to show that it can hold a fire apparatus of 75,000 pounds and that there are adequate turnarounds for emergency and personnel reflected from the 2015 International Fire Code, Chapter 5, Section 503.6, Appendix D, Section D 103.4, Table 104.4, Section D 103.5. Staff recommendations: based on the findings of fact, staff analysis, and agency comments, staff recommends conditional approval of case SU 038 on a 33.9 acre solar generating facility to be known as the Cortez Drive Solar Project with the following conditions. Applicant shall obtain approval of a zone change case Z22018 in order for the SUP to be approved. A chain link fence 8 feet high shall be constructed around the perimeter of the facility. A remediation and decommissioning plan shall be submitted at the time of the building permit submittal. The plan shall include the following: the anticipated means and costs of removing the solar energy facilities, provisions for the removal of all structures and foundations, the removal of all electrical transmission components, the restoration of soil and vegetation, and soundly based plan ensuring financial resources will be available to fully decommission the plan. PV modules will be disconnected, collected, and disposed of at an approvable solar module recycler or reused, resold on the market. All above ground electrical interconnections and distribution cables and poles shall be removed and disposed off-site at an appropriate facility. Chain link fencing and gates to be removed unless otherwise specified by the future landowner will be disposed, sold, or recycled at an approved facility. Galvanized steel PV module support and racking systems. Support posts shall be removed and disposed to be recycled, resold, or reused. Concrete foundations shall be removed and disposed off-site at appropriate facility. AC and DC wiring that can be disconnected and removed from equipment and earth will be considered for recycling. On-site power point poles and medium wattage voltage wiring shall be removed unless poles were pre-existing. Reseeding a vegetation layer where impacts occurred.
Questions? Guess we should hear from the applicant. Yeah.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm one of the folks calling in virtually, Anthony Bell with Renewable Properties. As the applicant, the landowners are Ben's LTD company, as mentioned in the presentation. We provided Ms. Sanchez Evan.
Whoa. If you want to testify, you have to be sworn in, please.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Anthony Bell with Renewable Properties. The company's address, or would you prefer my personal address?
The company address.
The company address, Renewable Properties LLC, is 879 Sanchez Street in San Francisco, California, 94114.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law? Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Proceed.
Okay, thank you. As I was mentioning, we had sent in a brief presentation on the project to county staff. We can show that if you all wish. I don't think it has any new information that wasn't covered, but we can go through it. As well as the next project on the agenda at South Main Street. So we can skip it around as necessary. But if we could proceed to the next slide, please. Just a quick overview of who we are as a company. Renewable Properties is a national developer, financer, owner, and operator of community solar projects throughout the country. What that means is that we develop, but then own and operate through the life of the facility. So we're around both through construction, development, construction, as well as operations. The company is headquartered in San Francisco, California. Our current development pipeline is over 600 megawatts of community solar, currently active in 12 different states. 9 projects of that 600 megawatt currently under development is within the state of New Mexico. Projects under construction are currently 12 projects in 5 states, and we have 14 projects in operation across 6 states in the country. As I mentioned, we're developer, owner, operator, so our business model is to be around for the life of the project, which means that it's very important for us to work collaboratively with the communities we're developing in, and we try and do our best to be a good neighbor and engaged community participant as we're in it for the life of the project. Our company leadership has a combined of over 40 years of solar development and solar financing experience with over a gigawatt of solar facilities under their belt. Next slide, please. This is just a quick little factoid on community solar. I think it was adequately addressed by the gentleman on the previous agenda items. But just in case anyone has any questions about the specifics of the New Mexico Community Solar Program that is currently being rolled out, there's a link here in the presentation. And again, just bullets on how community solar works. The projects are signed up under the program, and it is delivered to communities, and off-takers, individuals, households are able to sign up and receive credits on their individual utility bills, is the long and short of it. Next slide, please. So this is our Cortez Solar project. Next slide, please. One point of clarification I wanted to make, I think during staff's presentation, it kept alluding to the parcel, the overall parcel as being 70 acres. The actual parcel is closer to 50. And the project size, so the project within the fence was accurate, 33.9, give or take, inside the fence. But the actual parcel acreage is closer to 50 rather than 70. The project is a proposed 5 megawatt community solar project. Current zoning is D1L, and this zone change request is to have it changed to T2, as mentioned by staff. One thing I wish to point out with this site layout, if you could please go back. Originally, the site plan that was submitted in the first iteration of the application showed a layout that was much, much closer to Morrow Drive, so shifted to the western edge of the parcel. After receiving comments, community comments, and discussions with the neighbors along Morrow Drive and Cortez Drive with concerns about view shed, we were able to redesign the facility to shift it as far east on the subject parcel as possible, which created over 100 additional feet between the project and those residences. And any existing vegetation within that 100 feet is anticipated to remain. So there should be a robust visual buffer left in place between the neighbors to the west of the project and the project itself. And I would also like to highlight that the site plan does include vegetative screening and plantings per the Unified Development Code of the county. So that will also be in place as another measure we're taking to address and mitigate view shed concerns. We can skip the next few slides just because that's about the next project. So project design, best management practices, minimum 7-foot tall wildlife friendly security fence. I believe the presentation mentioned 8, so we'll be able to do that. The panels are on single axis trackers, as was mentioned, which will track the sun as it moves east to west across the sky. I already touched on the landscape buffers to address visual impacts and our efforts to mitigate that by the plantings, as well as shifting the project further east. Increases to impervious area are going to be minimal. It's essentially going to be the access roads within the project, and obviously all stormwater and erosion control designs and the SWIP will be designed to mitigate for that minor increase in impervious area. Increases to local traffic will only occur during construction of the project. So traffic impacts along Cortez Drive will be temporary once the project is constructed. Visits to the site will be minimal, and should be singular light vehicles going for the routine monthly, bi-monthly inspections. The other concerns that were voiced by public comments to this project were, the condition of Cortez Drive, as was mentioned during the staff's presentation. It's public up into the intersection of Saromi Lane, and then from Saromi Lane to Morrow Drive, it's private. There are concerns about, and it's unpaved. There were concerns voiced about the condition of that road during construction, especially after rain events. Obviously, our company will need to utilize that road as well during construction, and so we are committed to, with the consent of the other homeowners along that private road, we are committed to the maintenance of that road during the temporary construction phase, through grading and compacting it as necessary so that it can be, usable for the neighbors as well as ourselves during construction. Next slide, please. Also, as was mentioned in staff's report, no additional water or sewer infrastructure will be needed for this project. Seeding will, to impacted areas, will utilize a native seed mix featuring pollinator-friendly species to help out those pollinators in the area. As was already mentioned, the facility will be monitored in real time remotely from our O&M center, and maintenance will include the routines inspections I hinted on earlier, but then also vegetation management as needed, which will mostly be mowing. And a decommissioning plan was submitted to staff for consideration. And that is it for the presentation. So that is all we had to share as the applicant, and we welcome any questions. Thank you.
Questions of the applicant? Okay, I'm going to open it to public comment. Who's on the list?
Joe Carbajal?
Okay, Mr. Benz? Would you like to speak? Okay, thanks. Mr. Carbajal, come on up.
Good morning, Commissioners. Want to say thanks for having me.
Mr. Carbajal?
Decisions, things you make.
Mr. Carbajal, if I can swear you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Joe Carbajal, 7850 Cortez Drive.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, so good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for having me. I know decisions, things you make impact lots of things in the city, so thanks for your service. Lots of things you guys do. Obviously, I'm a little nervous being up here. It's not something I normally do. I moved out to Cortez Drive because it's quiet. You know, I kind of like minding my own business and doing my own thing, you know, so I can see where Mr. Benz is coming from, why he's trying to do what he's trying to do, so, you know, so I like to try to let people, you know, do what they like with their properties. But on the other side of that, when it starts to affect where I live, what I have to see on a daily basis, things of that nature, it makes me a little nervous. You know, then it changes the way you kind of feel about that when it impacts you directly. So just kind of a quick little background today. Today's the anniversary of the death of my wife. So how's that important? Well, we picked this place because it's out in the middle of, you know, kind of nowhere. There's not a lot of neighbors, not a lot of activity, things like that. The views, anybody who comes to my house says, wow, those views are amazing. And so in order to kind of protect our dream, you know, I'm here kind of trying to protect that, I guess, per se. So when they say they want to put in a solar field or farm, you know, there's lots of things that come to mind for me, you know, noise, glare on my home, you know, I'm the immediate home. So Cortez Drive ends. And then, so the slide that she showed that where she said this is Cortez Drive and Mauter Drive, that's actually not. That's my driveway. Mauter Drive is across the berm there. So that's a little farther. I could show you that on the screen if that has any impact with you guys. But, so, you know, Las Cruces is hot already. Am I going to get an increased heat coming off of it to my house because I'm the closest home? Am I going to have to look at a glare every single day? You know, I took a picture of my home this morning. I got pictures of flooding and things like that down the road, but I took a picture of my home this morning. I can pass it. You guys can look at it if you want. You can kind of get a idea if it matters. Okay, that's my backyard looking out, you know, direct view of the mountain.
Thanks, Joe.
Yes, so as you guys can see, you know, it works me up a little bit because that place back there was pure dirt. I built it with my own hands, heart and soul. Okay. I've been a business owner in the community for 20 years. So, you know, I try to always give back to the community. I try to be one. I try to work with people. So I'm hoping that's what you guys will do with myself, other business owners. Matt owns Chick-fil-A, you know, got other neighbors here. We're all concerned about it, you know. So I personally, I came to the city, I came to the county, I talked to everybody, I talked to Commissioner, I can't tell you his name, it's the gentleman with the long hair in the Commissioner, you guys know him, he sings a little bit and stuff like that, you know who I'm talking about. So I came to talk to them about working on the roads, fixing the roads. And they say, hey, that's city ends. Yes, there you go. City ends here. That's a private drive. You're on your own. That was confirmed by her not too long ago, okay? So what does Joe do? I buy a $45,000 piece of equipment. I got a tractor. I've been maintaining that road for years. Okay, I haven't come to the county. I haven't said, hey, you guys owe me, you whatever. I've been personally maintaining that. So the second I hear that, hey, I'm gonna have construction, I'm gonna have whatever. So a little background on me, I've worked in construction. So I know how heavy a water truck is loaded down. I know how heavy a scraper is, track hoe, backhoe, dozer, blade. Every one of those pieces of equipment are going to be going up and down my road, which I maintain because it's a public or a private drive that nobody else seems to want to help me on. So we got major water issues, things like that going on, happening in this area. I got a berm that's right at the end of Cortez Drive and Mauro Drive. Mauro Drive is actually not a drive, it's an arroyo, and it runs tons of water down it. And as soon as that berm is breached, okay, so the cities come in a couple times, they knock this berm down, and as soon as they do that, the water breaches the berm. What does it do? Fills my driveway. I have a paved driveway, and it gets filled with silt, things like that. Takes me a week of work. What does Joe do? I don't complain. I just take it out, I clean it, put the road back. I grade the road for everybody up and down the road. So that gets old pretty quick. So I would think that a project like this going in, if Mr. Benz were going to do some housing or something there, they would make him put a ponding area, they would make sidewalks, they would make, all these utilities be upgraded, put in. So I don't see how that's any different, when you go and you put in a project like that, then I think you ought to, there should be some consideration of that road. So I also have a video of water running down the road when it breaches that. And it's not even a really heavy rain. When I get the heavy rains, like I said, it runs up into my driveway. So I want to put on the record 100% that berm or that situation has to be, the integrity of that has to be maintained because it goes straight into my yard. And, you saw the back of my yard, the front of my yard's just the same. Okay, paved driveways, rock walls, beautiful. So we try to do that. As soon as the water breaches that berm, runs right down the middle. So a month ago, or when we had our last heavy rain, I'm filling in 2 foot of material. You know how hard it is to find 2 foot of material there to put back in once it washes down the road? So it takes me a while, lots of work. Well, the second it does that, it's exposing all of our internet cables. There's some water that's right at the corner of Sorome and Cortez, a big, I guess, manhole or valve or something that gets exposed. It's sticking up. It's a danger to people driving up and down, but who's fixing it? That's me, and so last time I was fixing it, some guy from the city, he comes out and he says, what are you doing? I said, I'm fixing the road. He said, well, you shouldn't be touching it. Well, she says it's private. You guys won't mess with it. City won't. You see what I mean? So like it's this constant thing. And so I tell the guy, well, this sign says city road ends right down there. Why are you bugging me? So anyway, so it's this constant battle. I'm trying to fix this stuff. Another major issue that's going on out there that I'm not even sure Mr. Benz is aware of, he has major drug deals going on at the end of the property, bottles, parties. I myself, some of the neighbors, I'm not sure if some of them in here have gone out there. We're cleaning this up. Couches thrown, chairs thrown, but the bottles and the broken glass and all of that is just out of hand out there, and so if we're going to do something like that, then I think we need to gate that road off, try and stop some of these things. You know, I'm the one that has to deal with some idiot doing donuts in front of my house at 2 o'clock in the morning because they're on that property doing parties, you know? They're shooting guns, they're doing lots of stuff. Matt, can you attest to all that kind of stuff?
Wait, you have,
You know,
speak to the
Yeah,
commission, okay?
and so, I mean, he's the immediate neighbor, you know, and so I understand. But, so we're all dealing with this, and I think those are things that if you're gonna use that property and do that, then I think you gotta help and do some upgrades and help us out in these situations. You know, I was listening to Anthony. Anthony, thanks, always nice on the phone, whatever, we've had few communications, but Charlene says the fence is gonna be 8 foot high. I talked with Anthony, he says it can be 6 foot high. So as you look out my backyard, for me, one of the main things is I don't want to hear noise and I don't want to see a fence or an ugly transformer or something like that. You know, because now we're talking about the values of my homes and things like that. So, like I said, I put a lot of work into this place and I hope at some point, you know, maybe when it gets too big or too much for me to take care of, I can maybe turn a profit and be able to, hey, retire, have some money, things like that. You know, so I've placed a lot of hope on this place, and then to just see a solar field come in and just kill my value, and there goes, you know, a lot of money that I was counting on, you know. And so, like, for me, you know, it may seem absurd, but like I would like a safeguard against that. I would like something in writing that says, hey, Joe, because right now my home's probably in the $700,000 range, you know what I mean? And so, like, now if I sell it and I'm selling for 400, then I lost 300,000. You know, it sounds crazy. And those are all just numbers, you know, supposed numbers, you know. And so I've asked Anthony, you know, hey, does this solar fields affect values? Well, he says, not in my opinion or past, you know, and it doesn't really matter as far as that because we don't have enough data. These haven't been in place long enough to really say, hey, these affect your values or they don't. You know, so by the same token where you guys are saying they don't, I'm saying there's a possibility that it could, and this is impacting my life later in life as I get older. You know, these are things I'm counting on to be sure that I have enough money besides living on Social Security or whatever. It sounds ridiculous, but like I'm really concerned about my value, my views, things like that. You know, so I'd like to see if we could get some kind of lock gate or something on the corner of that, you know. Something that was brought up a minute ago, we're going to connect to the main power lines, to the El Paso electric power lines. That's what it sounds like. Okay, well, the pole is right in front of my house. So now am I going to get another overhead power line coming from this?
We can ask.
You know, so like, I don't want that. As a matter of fact, I tried getting El Paso Electric to come and remove that pole because it's literally in front of my house. Like, I don't like it. It's an eyesore. So when I went around, so I've owned several homes, and as I go around, well, I had one home that had a green box in it, you know, and I hated it. So now as I drive around, I try to avoid purchasing things that have something that's going to affect it like that. So if I'm doing that, I'm sure other homeowners are doing that. Those are things that affect your values. So definitely, you know, I appreciate him trying to push the project farther over. You know, I definitely would like to see that fence on the west side of the project. If this project does go, I'd like to see that, you know, moved lower, 6 foot. I don't want to see it, you know. And, maintaining the, I'm just kind of looking over a few notes that I've been, oh, here's you a good one. So the city, Charlene said the city owns the property to the north side of where this project is going to be, okay? So they came in, they completely cleared it out. When they cleared it out, what'd they clear out? Tons and tons of mesquite bushes. Where are all those mesquite bushes? Right at the end of Cortez Drive in a great big pile. You know, and snake pit, bobcats, I mean, you name it, and it's an eyesore, and that pile is still sitting there. And I think they cleared that out 12, 15, 20 years ago, but I still have a big pile sitting there. So are they going to come in and clear this out, and I'm going to have a big pile of, you know, rubbish sitting there, and now it's a big snake den, you know, because we do have a lot of snakes there. So as soon as you go through and you clear that out, you're going to make all those snakes move somewhere, you know. So if you put a great big pile, that's a major concern. You know, I don't know if you guys have physically walked the property. Charlene stated she did not go out into the middle of the property.
She can't. She's not allowed to go on the property.
Okay, so she took a picture from the outside. I don't know when's the last time Mr. Benz has been on his property, but he's got lots of little arroyos, runoff, drainage, things like that. They all run to Mauro Drive. Mauro Drive, which like I stated, wasn't a road, it's a wash. Then it washes down the road, and then, so there's a ditch that should be cleaned out quite a bit by somebody, I would assume the city, but never gets cleaned out. So that silt is built up, hits that berm, breaches that berm, and then I just have a major problem because that ditch isn't being cleaned.
Right.
And so, like, you know, some of the equipment that I have, you know, a Bobcat, a small tractor, it doesn't have the capability to stand up in that soil that's there, you know, in the sand. They just spin the tires or whatever. Plus, you know, it's not my property. So like I told you in the beginning, I try to respect those things all the time. Pretty much, guys, I think that's about where I'm at, you know, noise, glare, you know, what are long-term health risks of something shining back at me for 15 years? I don't know. We don't know. But, you know, I don't want that to be a something that happens to me, you know, so like if I can help that. That's about all I got. I mean, I think it's pretty strong case, you know, that, or at least let you know how I feel.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Okay. Very good. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Mr. Benz? You had your hand up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Eddie Benz. I live at 535 Roadrunner Lane, and I'll try to tell the truth the best as possible.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, you've heard the story many times regarding our solar stuff. I could talk for 30 or 40 minutes and tell you how great it is, but let's bypass all that. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm dealing with a company here, the Wildcat Renewable LLC, which is a major supplier. They're not a fly-by-night operation. I feel they're people that are going to do the job right and also try to participate in our community as much as possible, which was obvious when we were able to move the site farther east, farther away from the current neighbor situation. And I think that's a good indication of our intent to try to be good neighbors as much as possible, and also to try to mitigate the potential problems that go with it. From the standpoint of the values, you gentlemen know that I have a solar project going a few hundred feet out the back door of my house, right across the street here. And if I had a fear that it was going to tear the values up, I certainly wouldn't put one in my own backyard. So I do, in my opinion, do not feel that there's going to be a major issue as far as the evaluation is concerned. This piece of real estate that we're talking about, I've owned for the last 50 some odd years. So it's not a new purchase, it's a long-term investment, because I knew that Las Cruces was going to grow and grow in an easterly direction. And this is investment property that I play with for that purpose. At some point in time, this piece of property will be developed much further and much more dense as the town needs and absorbs it. And at that point in time, this property would be annexed into the city of Las Cruces, just as the property to the south and to the north of me is concerned. I doubt if it would go very much further in a easterly direction because of the BLM's conservation regarding the Organ Mountains. I've built houses in lots of areas of Las Cruces, and I tell my customers that enjoy the view you have today because it ain't going to be there tomorrow. We're going to continue to grow, and if you want to protect your view, you better go buy a few hundred acres on the other side of you so that someone can't build a house or plant a tree or put a light post in, because growth is going to happen and you have views on a limited basis. You can enjoy them while you can. So that particular issue is a concern. I've got property scattered all over the place, and I've got some areas where I have roads that have not been brought up to the standard of the city of the Doñana County. And under that situation where a road has never been brought up to the standards of the county, it's up to the property owner to maintain those and take care of them. And that's the policy, and that's what exists there. So there is a piece of road here that apparently has never been brought up to standards. So it has never been accepted by the county for maintenance. It does present a problem. The need for the solar is obviously there. The request for approval of this project is obviously on the table, and I think I've talked long enough. I'll let you gentlemen weigh it out, and let's try to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any, Elaine? Anybody else?
Matt Carper. Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Matt Carper, 7820 Cortez Drive.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give us the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
So, I'll be brief. Joe and I are neighbors, so I'm just on the other side of him. I'm a solar advocate. I've got 15K in my own backyard, so I believe in solar. I believe it's the right thing to do. And so I wouldn't even necessarily say I'm opposed to this project. Before I came to Las Cruces and had been fortunate enough to open my own businesses, I worked at the mines in Carlsbad, and I know that promising to be a good neighbor and actually being a good neighbor are two very different things. I also know that 6 to 8 months of construction is also project management code for 8 to 12 months. And so I guess my biggest concerns are dust generation during the construction phase. I've got 3 small kids. They're outside all the time. I moved out there so they could have that room to run. I love being across from state land and close to BLM land. I did purchase that land knowing that, hey, more development may come to the east. So obviously views are a concern, but that's life. But my biggest concern is I know we're kind of at a point where we either approve it or don't. But dust control, there's more densely populated neighborhoods just to the west of us by about a little less than a mile. And Joe mentioned, just stirring up rattlesnake dens, all those fun things that come with a mass excavation versus a gradual excavation that would come with residential development. And so just a little concerned. So I am about 200 feet from the edge of the property. I do appreciate you guys moving it east. That does show good faith, so I appreciate that. But that puts Joe right at the border still. So I do have concerns about just the construction phase in general. All the concerns about the road, Joe hit with extreme detail. I'm grateful for Joe because he does take care of it. I'm at the point of looking at asphalting my driveway for the same washout reasons. So my concern with the burn that Joe mentioned is how do heavy service trucks, how do fire trucks, how do we build something that keeps the rains from completely washing Cortez Drive away while it's something that a service truck can get over? Because my long wheelbase pickup can't do it. So I don't know how a big fire truck or service truck is going to make it over there. So again, I realize this meeting is to approve or not approve this, but I think there's a lot of conversation that needs to happen around the condition of Cortez Drive, around construction phase. And I hope you guys do hold true to your word of wanting to work with us, because I don't think that, at least I don't feel that it's a bad thing that you guys are trying to generate energy out there. But when we're at a point where there's problems and we only see people twice a month out there maintaining it, who hears our voice when we're having concerns about the road and things like that in the long term. Let me see if there's anything else I had that Joe didn't already hit. Property value, again, it's very subjective, but I'll tell you guys that there's a study out of UT back in 2018 that's saying property values within 500 feet of solar arrays, most appraisers do see that there is a potential impact. And even those appraisers admitted that, hey, this is a new concept, we don't know, but I guess that's part of appraising, right? It's not a science, it's what we think the property will be impacted by. When it's time for Joe to sell his home or me to sell my home, people moving in, are they gonna look at that solar array and think, even if they are things that aren't true, are they gonna think those things, and their perception is their reality when it's time for them to make those purchase decisions? So this array is much closer to us than the previous projects, neighborhoods, it seems like. So we're within hundreds of feet of it. So that is something that concerns me. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elaine, anyone else?
We have one last, Deborah Gallegos.
Hello.
Good
Hello,
morning.
you guys. I'm very nervous, so please bear with me.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Deborah Gallegos, 4830 Saromi Lane.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, little bit about me and my family. My father is retired military and purchased his piece of property, 4830 Saromi Lane, over 30 years ago. 4 generations live on that piece of property. He's passed away, and I stay there and I take care of my mother, my son, and my grandkids live there. The area where my neighbor back here was talking about Morrow Drive, how there's a big berm and nobody's maintained it, my father used to maintain that, because if that overflows, that will flood out our property. And we just have a mobile home. We don't have rock walls. You know, we're just kind of old country folk that have been back there for years and years. Cortez Drive, I take my granddaughter, her bus stop is on Cortez and Bayer. Bus 80 comes and picks her up every morning. I have to pull over so other cars can pass by. It's only a one road. 2 cars cannot pass by that road. There's like a 2-foot drop off of the maintained city road that you guys have, where the arroyo has washed the road away. There's a 2-foot drop, so if any vehicle pulls over to let another car go by, they're going to rock bottom and get in this little 2-foot ditch. It was another gentleman on Cortez Drive who went to the fire station and got bags to stop the flooding down Cortez Drive. We have a truck and a car. You cannot come down Cortez Drive in a vehicle car if it's flooding. I am concerned about the flood. That's my main thing. You know, you guys start flattening land out there, it's gonna wash us away. And joke, you know, I just sold the boat, so I couldn't even get in the boat and go down the road. But, you know, I didn't realize it was my neighbor Joe. I just met him a couple weeks ago because Morrow Drive, as it states, Morrow Drive, it's not a drive, it's an arroyo. So when I order groceries from Walmart, it tries to send them down Morrow Drive, and I have to go pull out Walmart drivers from in front of Joe's yard because they try to go over that berm. And it's not even a road, it's not even 5 feet wide, you know, and it's sand, and any car that goes over that gets stuck. But I'm in the far north sector of it, I guess you want to say, of this project. And, you know, their concerns were Morrow Drive and Cortez flooding. Well, I have Morrow Drive and I have this other one that shoots across Saromi Lane that the city maintains something about that because it's a ditch. And there's signs on there And, you know, if you just flatten this land, it's going to flood everybody out if you don't do any flooding, something about the flooding. And you guys have a pond out there that you put out there many years ago, like he said, but that doesn't even catch the water that comes to our property. It may help with the flooding of the highway, but it has nothing to do with Morrow Drive or further down on Saromi Lane. And, you know, I thank Joe for maintaining that property because when it washes out, we can't even turn onto Saromi Lane. If he didn't maintain the property right there on the corner of Saromi Lane and Cortez, we would not be able to turn into Saromi Lane, and that's our only exit out of our home. And I guess that's basically all I have to say. And I thank you and have you consider what I've had to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlene, can you come back up for a minute? Can you pull the map up of the area?
That's,
Wait, go back there. So what's the, explain again, what's the access to the property,
it's Cortez Drive.
which is where?
It's right here.
On the north end of the property?
Right. Yes, they won't, I don't think they're going to access it by Morrow Drive. They're going to access it by Cortez Drive. And there is a plat of survey that was filed for an easement on front of the two properties of Joel Carbajal and the other person that lives there.
Yeah.
And then on the property that's west of theirs, there's a easement on their warranty deed for the road. From Sarnomi Drive to Cortez, where Ben's property starts.
Okay. So we're all done with public input?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, discussion?
Mr. Chair, it would appear, based on, and first, of course, I always want to say thank you for the staff presentation and testimony given today. And I know this is a lot to cover, but it does appear that the bigger concern has been the road conditions and the flood conditions, versus the proposed change itself. In which case, I would really, want to advise the residents and those who gave a testimony today to really reach out to your commissioner and really start a discussion on what can be done to improve these road conditions, whether it would be a road maintenance agreement or additional funding, especially for Cortez. I've been down that road before, and I do acknowledge the conditions, and I do appreciate Mr. Carbajal. I was completely unaware that you've done so much work out there, and that's sincere appreciation because there are not very many residents that'll take that into consideration and do what you do for your residents out there. But I do just want to comment on record that there is a very serious concern concerning the conditions here and from Saromi to Mara Drive and to Cortez. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I understand in some of these other, some of these other projects we've talked about, one of the conditions that the staff has recommended is that there be an 8-foot fence. One of the residents asked if on that 100-foot setback, if that fence could be lower than that. I think the suggested one was 6 feet. Is that something that can be done, or is the 8-foot kind of a rule that we have to follow?
No, it can be 6 to 8 feet.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Well, yes, it can be 6 feet.
If I may, Councilman, can you all hear me?
Yeah, we
Can you
can
all
hear.
hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, Joe, I wanted to, during your presentation, I didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to clarify, if on our phone call, I indicated we could do 6 foot, I apologize. That was a mistake on my part in the moment. The federal standard, I believe, for a minimum is 7 feet. So I wanted to correct that before that conversation went much further. So Joe, I want to apologize to you directly if on our phone call I indicated 6. That was a brain space on my part. So I apologize. But I believe the federal standard is 7.
Okay, thank you. If we don't have any other discussion,
I'd also like to note that, again, the 100-foot setback we've created, we propose to leave vegetated as is, and also the vegetative screen to be planted per the county UDC will be exterior to the fence. So between those two efforts, hopefully the fence should not even be visible regardless of the height.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to entertain a motion on the zone request. Z 22-018.
Based on the findings of fact, analysis, and agency comments, I'll move approval of case Z 22-019. 28, I'm sorry. I told you I lost my page. Z 22-038.
No, 18.
18.
Yep.
Okay.
I need a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Elaine, call the roll, please.
I apologize. I didn't catch who did the second. Commissioner Montañez?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Castañeda?
Yes.
Commissioner Lear?
Yes.
Commissioner Montañez? Commissioner Herrera?
Yes.
Commissioner Zargis?
Yes.
Commissioner Acosta?
Yes.
Chair Zerniak?
Yes. And now on case SU 22-038, special use permit.
Mr. Chair, before a motion, we just spoke about the federal standard of 7 feet and the 8-foot staff recommendation. It's my assumption that the purpose for an 8-foot, one of the benefits to an 8-foot fence is to deter any glare that has been, the glare concerns that have been brought up. Would it be, I guess it would be acceptable just to leave it at an 8-foot minimum requirement? Is there an 8-foot requirement?
I think.
If I may, sir, also given the security concerns that have been voiced by the neighbors, I think that an 8-foot fence would also be a deterrent to some of the crime-related activities and trespassing that were brought up also, if I may.
Thank you. I've closed it to comment. I think what we'll do is, I think what I'd recommend is to leave that discussion between staff, the applicant, and the neighbors, okay? Yeah. So I need a motion on the special use permit.
Mr. Chair, based on findings of facts, staff analysis, and agency comments, I move for conditional approval of case number SU 22-038 to allow a 33.90 acre solar generating facility to be known as Cortez Drive Solar Project with the following conditions. I'm going to start with a remediation and decommissioning of plan shall be submitted at the time of a building permit submittal. The plan shall include the following. The solar system will be disconnected from the utility power grid. PV modules will be disconnected, collected, and disposed at an approved solar module recycler or reused, resold on the market. Although the PV modules will not be cutting edge technology at the time of decommissioning, they're estimated to still produce 80% of the original electricity. I'm reading just from the staff recommendation here. All above ground electrical interconnection and distribution cables and poles shall be removed and disposed off-site in an approved facility. All underground direct buried electrical conduits and conductors with less than 48 inches of cover shall be removed by means of causing the least amount of disturbance. Underground electric conduits and direct buried conductors with 48 inches or more soil cover shall be abandoned in place. Abandoned conduit must be sealed or capped in accordance with the best practices at the time of decommissioning. Galvanized steel PV module and support racking system support posts shall be removed and disposed off-site or recycled, salvaged in an approved facility. Electrical and electronic devices, including transformers, inverters, switchgear, and support structures shall be removed and disposed off-site in an approved facility. Any components not required for return to the Power Authority will be disposed off-site or recycled, salvaged, recycled or salvaged at an approved facility. Concrete foundations shall be removed and disposed off-site in an approved facility. Access roads shall be removed unless otherwise specified by the future landowner and the underlying soils recomputed. Fencing and gates shall be removed unless otherwise specified by the future landowner and will be disposed off-site at an approved facility. There are no permanent changes to the site. The site can return to productive land after the system is removed. And I just want to add the fence requirement, shall be required per staff recommendation.
Between 6 and 8 feet.
Yes, between 6 and 8 feet per staff recommendation.
For federal regulation?
And
fence
yes, for federal regulation.
Staff.
Yes. I just want to leave that discussion between the applicant and staff.
Okay. I'm going to add one. On the application that we have, it says that the recommendation of the fire marshal, and then it's a building services comment, so there's a typo here.
Yes, there's a typo there.
And there's no recommendation in the staff recommendation on the fire marshal requirement.
The fire marshal requirement is for the SUP, for the 75, the road to be able to retain 75,000 pounds.
Well, I'm going to just read this into the record, okay, real quick. The roadway needs to show that it can hold a fire apparatus of 75,000 pounds, that there are adequate turnarounds for emergency personnel. Turnaround should be noted on the plan submittal and be adequate with dimensions reflected from table below to ensure adequate radius. Access gate would also have to adhere to below standard for size and accessibility. All dimensions needed to be reflected on the site plan will be checked for approval, and they reference the 2015 International Fire Code. Any new improvements, additions, or changes to the existing proposal will be required to meet all IFC 2015 Fire Code and fire suppression requirements. Are you okay with that? Okay. Did we get a second?
I'll second it.
And you're okay with that addition? You're okay with my addition? Yeah. Okay. Is there any other conditions? Okay. Call for the question.
Commissioner Zarges,
Yes.
Commissioner Herrera, Commissioner Montañez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lear,
Yes.
Commissioner Castañeda,
Yes.
Commissioner Acosta,
Yes.
Chair Zerniak.
Yes.
Mr.
Motion
Chair?
passes.
Mr. Chair, there will be a new, a survey will be required for the 50-acre parcel that's going to be used for the
Oh.
zone change.
Okay, you want that as a condition?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any objection? No objection.
Thank you.
Last case, Z22019.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mel,
request permission to leave the meeting.
that's fine.
Thank you.
This is agenda item Z22019 for a zone change.
Can
for
we-
a- Oh, pardon me.
Mr. Benz, could I ask you to take your conversation outside, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Charlene Santisteban, 845 North Motel Boulevard, Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next case is for a zone change, Z22019, for a solar facility on South Main Street. The owner applicant is Admiral Beverage Corporation, and again, is Wildcat Renewables LLC. The location is 6,000 South Main Street. The zoning is a D1 low density. We're going to an I1 light industrial. The zone changes on a 9-acre parcel from a D1 low density residential zone to an I1 light industrial zone. The property is contiguous to a 54-acre I1 zone with the same owner for a community solar generating facility on 25.07 acres to be known as the South Main Street Solar Project. This is the location map. This is a zoom up of the aerial photo of the property. This is the site plan.
Wait, back up. So do you have two parcels there or one parcel?
This parcel, let me get the mouse right here. This is the existing building, and it's the Admiral Beverage Company.
Right.
And behind this property, it's vacant. And so this is where the zone changes for this parcel.
So this other parcel already has the I-1?
Yes. It already has I-1.
All right.
So there's the zoning map. The project will be comprised of a small-scale 5-megawatt solar generating facility on approximately 27.0 acres behind the existing building of Admiral Beverage Corporation. The system will be mounted at single-axis trackers associated with inverters, transverters, etc. The solar modules will move closely and slowly from east to west throughout the day, tracking the sun. The project is designed to interconnect with the existing utility grid infrastructure via the existing medium voltage overhead lines. The entire project premise will be contained within an 8-foot fence, could be 6 to 8 feet, with a locked access gate and appropriate signage to prevent trespassing. And of course, the property is located on South Main. Per New Mexico state regulations, the SB Solar Community Act, SB 84, was signed into law April 2021 by Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. This is an aerial of the area. This is an entrance to Admiral Beverage from Main Street. You cross the tracks and then go into the property. That's a sign that they had on there. This is going into the rear of the building. around the property. And this is to the north, the west, the east, and south. The zone change evaluation requirements, it's according to the UDC, and these are the sections that give us authority. Legal ads, the 27 letters of notification were mailed to the property owners within 300-foot buffer on October 17th. Legal ads were placed in Sun News October 18th. Signs were posted on the property in a timely manner, and agenda posted on the DAC website. And these were the original signs when they were set up. That's the area of notification map. There's no potential of homes being proposed, no impact to population with proposed use. Demographics states there will be no large impact to demographics. The only traffic will be generated during construction, and minimal traffic after construction, 1 to 2 trips per month for O&M. No need for commercial or residential is proposed, and it's an unstaffed utility. Potential for water and sewer, there's existing infrastructure there, so none of that will be necessary. They may have to bring a portable toilet for the property during construction, and portable water will be brought in if they need that. No significant impacts were found. Environmental impacts were found. The proposed project would be situated on rural vacant land located in a remote location behind the building, away from public areas. The applicant focuses on operating and maintaining a high-performing solar facility as a first full-service provided from construction to operation, and remotely monitored 24 hours a day.
Wait, go back.
Yes?
How can you say it's situated on a rural vacant land in a remote location when you have an industrial plant right in front of it?
Behind it, it's not remote. I was wrong with that. It was remote. Behind, it's vacant, and it was agricultural land prior to this, and it's still vacant behind there. The only portion that's paved or has industrial use is where the building site for the Admiral Beverages. They have it with, they have the cement pad there, and it's.
So the actual impact on surrounding properties is that it's compatible with the I-1 to the east. So
Yes, that's correct. I went to the east, and behind, to the west, it's agricultural and it's vacant.
Okay.
Okay, and there wasn't anything around it that I could see that was close by. The Wildcat Renewables has secured the site control of approximately 25.07 acres behind the building. The proposed project will be situated on industrial and vacant agricultural land away from public areas. The parcel is currently zoned D1, and the proposed zone to I1 is contiguous to an adjoining 54-acre parcel with the same owner. The zone change will provide a seamless use of the property for a solar generating facility. The zone change is compatible with our 2040 comprehensive plan, strategy 3, goal G 6.2, goal G 2.2, green infrastructure, renewable energy, and energy. Decisional criteria: the proposed zone change request meets the standards of a rural environment in addition to the industrial zone that it's contiguous with. And it's addressing community affordability infrastructure planning for renewable energy, and the property is bounded by agricultural and undeveloped vacant and rural land, except on the east side where it's industrial and the beverage company is located. The Solar and the Solar Act that was passed by the state gives authority to this. Solar energy will provide an alternate source of energy, making the county's utilities more cost-effective. Currently, the only use for allowing for new renewable energy facility would be I-1, and that's why we are recommending an I-1 zone. No capital expenditures is anticipated. The applicant is proposing a passive commercial use as a utility. The traffic analysis may be needed to determine impact to South Main for proposed development. Direct access to South Main shall be approved by permit only from New Mexico DOT, District 1 office. It is not spot zoning since it is not, I'll read the definition for spot zoning again. An attempt to wrench a single lot from its environment and give it a new rating that disturbs the tenor of the neighborhood and which affects only the use of a particular piece of property or a small group of adjoining properties and is not related to the general plan for the community as a whole, but is primarily for the private interest of the owner of the parcel. Spot zoning is determined on an ad hoc basis depending on the facts and circumstances of the case. Factors to be considered are the disharmony of with the surrounding area, the size of the area to be rezoned, and the benefit of the rezoning to the community or the owner of the parcel. So putting it into an I-1 zone contiguous to existing I-1 zone is in harmony with what they want to use the land for. It is not strip zoning, and the findings, the property is located outside. The Incorporated Municipal Zoning Authority is within Doña Ana County, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has jurisdiction to review this case. The request of the application is consistent with the requirements of the UDC. The zone change request for I-1 does satisfy the decision criteria for a zone change in that zone. Is appropriate and reasonable and necessary to protect the public interest. The zone change to I-1 zoning would not be considered spot zoning as the proposed uses in harmony with surrounding areas. The size of the development is appropriate for the area, and there will be a benefit to the community by increasing the availability of community affordability for a solar utility and will capitalize upon the region's solar energy resources. The zone change will not be in significant impact with the comprehensive plan or other adopted plans by the city. Based on the findings of fact, staff analysis, and agency comments, staff recommends approval of Z22019 zone change on a 9-acre parcel from D1 low-density residential zone to I-1 light industrial zone district for a 25.09-acre community solar generating facility to be known as the South Main Street Solar Project. What's that? There's a typo. 25 acre? It's Oh, that's right. Okay. 25.07 acres. For the solar facilities, 25.07 acres for the solar facility. The whole property is a 54-acre plus a 9-acre parcel, but the zone change is only for the 9-acre parcel because the 54-acre parcel is already I-1. Questions?
Back to the zoning map for just a second, please. Directly behind the subject, so I think you got my answer here. There's not an additional parcel in between the subject parcel and the existing Admiral Beverage property.
No, it's contiguous to it. It's adjacent, right?
Okay.
They share a property line.
Okay, thank you. I didn't realize that parcel was as big as it was. I mean, seeing it from the street, you don't, it's as big.
Yes, and it doesn't seem.
And what's behind there?
Behind there, it's vacant, like it's paved, like from here, all, the cement plat. So all of this is native agricultural land back there.
It's just vacant.
It's just vacant.
Any questions for staff? Applicant?
I do want to say, I've been in that facility. In 2010, I interviewed for a job there, and I did not get hired. I'm still a little bitter about it. Yes, I ended up at RNDC. That didn't work out too well either, but, hard feelings.
Is the applicant here?
Yes, I'm here. It's Renewable Properties again, Anthony Bo with Renewable Properties
Did you want
as the applicant.
Did you want to make a presentation?
Only if the commissioners think that's necessary. It's the same slide deck that we had for the last project, but for 2 slides with, the site plan, which has already been showed, and specifics on this project. So it's the same slide presentation regarding community solar, the community solar program, and the project specs and best management practices. So I don't think there's much
Okay,
more to be gained from the presentation unless you all wish to see it again.
okay, that's all right. Do we have any questions? No. Is there anybody signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. If we don't have any questions or further discussion, I'll call the question.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Based on the findings of fact and staff analysis and agency comments, I move approval of case Z 22-019, zone change on a 9-acre parcel from D1 low-density residential to I1 light industrial for a 25.07 acre solar generating facility to be known as the South Main Street Solar Project.
Commissioner Zargis, is your mic on?
Yeah.
It is? Oh, okay, thank you.
A second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Lear seconded. Call for the question, please.
Commissioner Herrera? Commissioner Montañez?
Yes.
Commissioner Lear?
Yes.
Commissioner Castañeda?
Yes.
Commissioner Zargis?
Yes.
Chair Zerniak?
Aye. Motion passes. Administrative approvals?
Chair, we have no administrative approvals today. We'll have them both for October and November on our meeting in December 8th.
Is there any other staff input?
December 8th?
December 8th would be there. Yeah, we don't have, this is our only meeting for the month of November.
Okay.
Staff input, just remember, we have a bunch of ordinances, of orders for you guys to sign
Okay.
from the previous P&Z meeting.
Okay. Commission input. Commissioner Zargis.
If I could, I'd really like to suggest some sort of I realize we're shorthanded and things, but I'd really like to see some sort of a work session going. It seems that we have to keep addressing the solar issue because there's only one tiny, really parcel of zoning, in the I-1, that solar is allowed by right. Given the state and the federal push to renewable energy, I think that really needs to be addressed. We're spending a lot of time, a lot of effort and money visiting things twice at a time, doing the zone change, then doing the special use permit. It just seems that we could be more efficient with that. And I would just like to see that kind of a work session come up sometime in the relatively short future. And I realize the holidays are coming, people.
Yeah, I don't know what we can do about that.
Chair, and commissioners, we are throwing around some ideas right now. Basically, we're looking at the land use matrix, comparing it to other similar uses like cell towers or, minor utility buildings, those kind of uses that are unmanned facilities. There are a lot of S's in there for other, zoning designations, not just in use zones, but us, transect zones as well. So we are looking into that. And you will probably have something shortly, you know, if not on the next meeting, early December for sure.
That is the next meeting, early next year.
Yeah, early next year.
Yeah, I hope that the horse hasn't left the barn before we get something done. I got a couple of generic questions for you. How do you decide where to put notification signs?
I mean, our old code used to say,
It still does.
does it say one sign on every corner?
No.
We got rid of that because sometimes a corner, you know, it's like out in the middle of the desert. Now it just says, you know, that you just make sure that they're visible.
Conspicuous locations for the passers-by.
So can I ask you to, what I'd like you to consider, I don't think this is a lot of work. On the notification map, can you spot where you've put those signs? It could be just a pin that you drop.
Okay.
So that we know that we know where you've put them. So if somebody comes in and complains, we can say, well, that's where they were.
And just to clarify, staff is not the one going out there and putting up those signs, it's the applicant. We prepare the signs for them, they come pick them up, and they go and post them out there.
Okay, but you go out and take pictures, so when you
Yes.
do that, you do see the signs.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know where those signs are. The other thing is this, and I know this is going to be a pain in the neck, but I want you to think about it. When you take these pictures, if we haven't been out there, we have no idea of the context of your photo. And there's a method that you can use to show on a map where you're standing and what the range of the photo is. So we know what because there's no context, right? So it's very difficult to understand what that picture is showing us. So you spot where you're standing and you show us before the picture what the edges of the photo are showing. So it looks like a triangle, right? I'd like, and if it's too much work, I know you guys are short-handed, but at least for the future, make note of that, because I think that would be helpful for us to understand what the photo's showing. Is there anything else? Oh, I know, one other thing. Should we require a bond on these removal procedures? You know, if these companies go out of business, those solar farms are there. And I don't know if we can do that now because we haven't done it before. But going forward, I think we ought to consider that.
Chair, we do require them for cell towers.
Yeah.
So that is a requirement. So.
Exactly. Okay. That's a good point, Albert. Thank you. Anything else?
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
I'd like to make a comment, please.
Okay.
With all due respect to staff, I know they do a lot of good work. I'd just like to suggest that they clean up the presentation. I know that there was some confusion. Is there a 6-foot fence, an 8-foot fence? Is there solid walls? Is there not solid wall? Just keep these typos keep coming up. So I'd just like to suggest maybe they can clean it up before our next meeting, please.
Okay, Arnie, thank you.
No, on your question on the bond, Commissioner, would that be, that would go through the Board of County Commissioners and apply to every application, or could we require that bond on an application individually?
No, I
as it
think
comes
we'd
in?
have to do it for everybody. We couldn't do that case by case. If we did it, we'd have to do it for everybody anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it just, I'm worried about that. That if these, I mean, they're saying 25 years from now, I'm going to be dead. And
So are most of us.
Yeah, I mean,
and
you
they're going
look
to
at,
be dead too, so
I could, I mean, I don't.
you're not going to be
I don't mean
dead.
to use this as, you never know. I don't mean to use this as an extreme example, but you look at the eastern part of the state where you do have a lot of abandoned oil wells, and they're going through the exact same,
Exactly.
the exact same issue there.
Yep, yep.
And the other thing, Mr. Chair, is that there's no guarantees that these solar projects are going to get built anyway. It's on a competitive basis, and I heard there's only going to be 5 let in the entire state.
Really?
That's what I've heard.
40 selected across the state for
Oh, 40?
40
40 across the state, I'm sorry.
Okay.
for 2023.
Anything else? You good? Okay, I guess we stand adjourned. Thank you.
I have, if you guys could, I have 6 orders to sign, please. Thank you.